Chapter 218. Shuiru stays in Jiang Mansion. Older sister, why the formality? We are all family. No need for polite words. At this moment, people from the second and third households of the Jiang family came to greet. The old Madame Shui distributed the gifts for the occasion. After the greetings, old Madame Jiang said to old Madame Shui, elder sister, you should stay in the mansion during this time. I'll save the trouble of tidying up, and we can chat. It's not much of a bother. I had someone clean our residence in the city when I arrived. Old Madame Shui replied with a soft chuckle. Hearing old Madame Jiang's words, old Madame Shui laughed softly. The Shui family has a residence in the capital, but no one had lived there for many years. However, no matter how old Madame Jiang tried to persuade her to stay, old Madame Shui insisted on staying in her own residence. Seeing that she insisted, old Madame Jiang did not say anything more. Instead, he looked at Shui Yin and said, Yin send your mother over with Hong later. See if there's anything that's missing and help to get everything ready. Yes, mother. After dinner, old Madame Shui took her leave. Jiang Hong and his wife escorted the Shui family members back. However, after leaving the Chrysanthemum Hall, Shuiru suddenly said, Grandmother, one don't have anyone to talk to when we return to our residence. Why don't you let me stay in Aunt's residence? As she spoke, Shuiru's gaze swept across Jiang Changbai from time to time. Shuiru also saw Xiao Nani, but after what happened in Qingzhou, she no longer dared to think about Xiao Nani. She didn't even dare to make a sound in front of Xiao Nani. Jiang Peihuan remained silent, but thinking about the incident in Qingzhou and Shuiru's current demeanor, she couldn't help frown. But looking at old Madame Shui and her mother, she still didn't say anything. If you need company, just come over in a carriage. It's better not to disturb your aunt, old Madame Shui replied coldly to Shuiru. Before Wang Fengyi could say something, she closed her mouth upon seeing the chill in old Madame Shui's eyes. Grandmother, one genuinely wished to stay here. Aunt hasn't seen family for many years. I can keep her company, Shuiru pleaded, her eyes admiring the luxurious surroundings of the general's mansion. Seeing the mansion's splendor even at night, it was far grander than the Shui residence. When old Madame Shui heard this, anger appeared in her eyes. However, when Shui Yin heard this, she immediately said, Mother, if Ru'er likes it here, let her stay. Huan and Sijin are also here. The girls can keep each other company. Yes, mother-in-law, Jiang Hong added. Hearing Jiang Hong and his wife's words, old Madame Shui didn't object anymore. Instead, she warned Shuiru, since you are staying, don't cause trouble for your aunt. Rest assured, grandmother. Seeing that old Madame Shui had agreed, Shuiru's eyes were filled with smiles. Old Madame Shui's eyes were filled with displeased. She hadn't initially intended to bring Shuiru, but the girl had secretly hidden in the carriage. By the time they discovered her, it was too late to send her back. Yet, this was not something she could share with the Jiang family. Huan take care of Ru'er, Shui Yin instructed. Don't worry, mother, Jiang Peihuan replied. Hearing Shui Yin's words, Jin Peihuan replied softly. Subsequently, Shui Yin and Jiang Hong escorted old Madame Shui out. After old Madame Shui left, Shuiru immediately approached Jiang Changhua. Cousin Changhua, what's fun in the capital? As she spoke, Shuiru's hand directly hugged Jiang Shangbai's arm. Jiang Changbai was stunned. After a few seconds, he pulled his hand away. When she tried to approach again, he stepped back and said softly, if you want to know fun places, ask Huan or Sijin. Huan am a bit tired. I'll go rest first. After saying this, Jiang Changbai immediately ran away. Watching his departing figure, Shuiru's eyebrows furrowed slightly, while a chill seemed to pass through Jiang Peihuan's eyes. However, when she turned to look at Shuiru, Jiang Peihuan still smiled, saying, Cousin Ru, shall I show you to your courtyard? There's no hurry. Let me go with you to take a look at your courtyard first. Jiang Peihuan wanted to refuse subconsciously, but for some reason, she nodded in agreement. Standing to the side, Jiang Sijin observed the scene. She felt something was off, but couldn't pinpoint what it was. Sijin, it's getting late. Go back to your courtyard and rest. Yes, elder sister. Jiang Sijin initially wanted to get closer to Shuiru, but for some reason, she didn't like this cousin very much. This feeling was even stronger than her dislike for her second sister. After Jiang Xijin left, Jiang Peihuan took Xueru to her own plum garden. Along the way, Xueru carefully observed the plum garden. Seeing the scenery along the way, Xueru's eyes were filled with jealousy. Back in Qingzhou, her garden was considered exceptional among those of young ladies. But now, after seeing Jiang Peihuan's plum garden, she understood the true meaning of opulence. Cousin Peihuan, you don't need to find another courtyard for me. It'll just stay in yours, Huanair. Before Xueru could finish, a deep voice interrupted her. She turned to see Xiao Nani sitting in the courtyard. Upon seeing him, Xueru's face changed immediately. Jiang Peihuan glanced at the man, then turned back to Xueru. Cousin Ru, what were you saying? I was saying that any nearby courtyard will do. No need to go out of your way. All right, 111 have Yu'er lead you there. Young miss, let me show you. Although Yu'er did not know what had happened, she knew Jiang Peihuan's temperament very well. Just by listening to Jiang Peihuan's tone, she knew that her eldest miss did not like this cousin. After Yu'er escorted Xueru away, Jiang Peihuan went to the man's side. Because of the snow, the pavilion had been sealed with cloth, but it was still a little cold. Looking at the man sitting on the bench, Jiang Peihuan smiled gently. Didn't you say you'd go back to the mansion first? Why are you sitting here? Why is she in the general's mansion? Didn't the old Madame Xue go to the Xue's residence in the capital? Mentioning Xueru, a hint of annoyance flashed in Xiao Nanya's eyes. Jiang Peihuan took a seat opposite him and softly said, she wanted to stay, so I let her. It saves my mother from the dilemma. As she spoke, Xiao Nani poured her a cup of hot water. Placing it beside her, he whispered, it's late, and it's cold. Drink some hot water. Jiang Peihuan wasn't thirsty, but she picked up the cup after hearing his words. As she drank, a silver hairpin suddenly appeared in his hand. What is this? Chapter 219. Xueru's thoughts. The silver hairpin in the man's hand was of a very simple design, but just from its material, Jiang Peihuan felt it was extraordinary. Indeed, right in front of Jiang Peihuan, the man pulled at the top of the hairpin, revealing a hidden small dagger in front of her. Looking at her ring, and then at the hairpin in the man's hand, Jiang Peihuan couldn't help but laugh. Are you trying to turn all my jewelry into hidden weapons? Jiang Peihuan said it offhandedly, but when Xiao Nani heard it, he nodded seriously. With these things by your side, I feel more at ease. While speaking, Xiao Nani gently inserted the silver hairpin into Jiang Peihuan's hair. Without a mirror, Jiang Peihuan couldn't see the hairpin. She looked up at the man in front of her. Does it look good? Yes. Hearing her words, the man nodded. The sound of snowflakes falling could be heard, and as Jiang Peihuan watched the heavy snow outside the pavilion, she showed a hint of worry, wondering if Shui Yin and Jiang Hong had returned yet. But as Xiao Nani watched the ever-growing snowflakes, he turned to Jiang Peihuan and said, the snow is getting heavier. You should go back to your room. I'll head home. All right. Seeing Jiang Peihuan nod, the man then turned and left the pavilion. Watching Jiang Peihuan enter her room, the man left the plum garden. Back in her room, Jiang Peihuan wasn't sleepy. The Xue family's house was a distance from the general's mansion, and she was somewhat worried about Shui Yin and Jiang Hong. Eldest miss, are you worried about the general and madam? Seeing Jiang Peihuan constantly looking outside, Yu'er approached and said softly. Hearing her, Jiang Peihuan nodded. Then, she picked up a hand warmer from the side. Accompany me to my older brother's courtyard. Let's go to the entrance to meet my father and mother. Yes. Xiaobai, don't mess around. When Yu'er opened the door, Xiaobai, who was beside the bed, ran directly to Jiang Peihuan's feet. Seeing it constantly tugging at Jiang Peihuan's skirt, Yu'er gently scolded, but Xiaobai wasn't afraid of her and acted as if he didn't hear. Watching this, a smile appeared in Jiang Peihuan's eyes. Handing the hand warmer to Yu'er, Jiang Peihuan bent down to pick up Xiaobai. Looking at the little creature in her arms, she whispered, do you want to go out with me? Xiaobai couldn't speak, but at the sound of Jiang Peihuan's voice, it licked her hand. Feeling the wet touch on her fingertips, Jiang Peihuan's expression became even gentler. She stretched out her hand, gently patting Xiaobai's head, and then carrying it outside, Since you're not afraid of the cold, 111 take you with me? You little fellow, you seem to have gained weight these few days. How could he not? Lu'er feeds him all sorts of delicious food every day. Sometimes, she would rather not eat it herself than let the wolf cubs eat it. Zhang Peihuan also knew about this. The two of them, carrying Xiaobai, headed to Jiang Shangbai's courtyard. Before they reached the entrance, Zhang Peihuan heard Jiang Shangbai's voice. Cousin Xueru, it's getting colder. You should go back to your room to rest. Cousin Changbai, the snow is getting heavier. Why don't you let me stay in your room to avoid the snowstorm? Hearing Xueru's voice, Zhang Peihuan frowned. Pushing open the courtyard door, Zhang Peihuan walked straight in. Jiang Changbai was standing helplessly at the door, while Xueru was looking at him tenderly, holding a food box in her hand. Seeing this scene, a hint of sarcasm appeared in Jiang Peihuan's eyes. When they were in Chrysanthemum Hall, Zhang Peihuan had noticed that Xueru was looking at her elder brother with a strange expression. However, she thought she'd at least have to wait a couple of days. But she didn't expect Xueru to be so impatient. Elder brother? Seeing that Jiang Changbai was wearing only a thin garment, Zhang Peihuan approached and spoke softly. Huan you're here. Seeing Zhang Peihuan approaching him, a big smile appeared on Jiang Shangbai's face, and he visibly relaxed. You go into elder brother's room and fetch his cloak? Yes, eldest Mississippi. Hearing Jiang Peihuan's instruction, Yu quickly entered Jiang Shangbai's room. Holding the food box, Xueru frowned upon seeing this. Cousin Huan why are you here? Shouldn't one be the one asking that, Cousin Ru? Facing Jiang Peihuan's gaze, Xueru felt a chill. Yet when she looked up again, she found Jiang Peihuan's expression to be as gentle as always. Glancing at the food box in her hand, Xueru said softly, It's so cold, and I was worried that my cousin would catch a cold, so I prepared some sweet soup for him. Cousin Ru is very thoughtful. But you seem to forget that this is the general's mansion. There are servants to take care of my brother. In the future, it might be better if you don't trouble yourself with such tasks. While those in the know appreciate your intentions, others might gossip about a young lady being alone with a man late at night. It might tarnish your reputation. Young master, your cloak. When Xueru heard Jiang Peihuan's words, her eyes were filled with anger. Just as she was about to speak, she saw Yu walking over with Jiang Shangbai's cloak. However, she showed no intention of helping Jiang Changbai put it on. Noticing this, Xueru glared at Yu and said coldly, You're so clueless. Can't you help my cousin with his cloak? Cousin, let me help you put it on. As Xueru approached with the intent to help, Jiang Changbai sidestepped her before she could touch him. Meeting her embarrassed gaze, Jiang Changbai said coldly, No need. I can manage it myself. After saying this, he quickly tied his cloak around himself. Seeing this, Zhang Peihuan turned to her brother and suggested, Elder brother, the snow seems to be getting heavier. I'm not sure if our parents have set out yet. Should we go and meet them? All right, they'll have the carriage prepared immediately. With that, Jiang Changbai walked out of the courtyard. When he reached the door, he remembered that Xueru was still standing at the door of his room. He turned around and said, Cousin, you should go back to your room and rest early. Don't catch a cold. After leaving the courtyard, Jiang Changbai sincerely bowed to Zhang Peihuan. Huan it's lucky you came. Otherwise, I fear I wouldn't have been able to get away today. Chapter 220. Xueru was bitten seeing the relieved look on Jiang Shangbai's face. Zhang Peihuan couldn't help but feel both amused and exasperated. Elder brother, you've noticed that cousin Ru Hui has ulterior motives for you, haven't you? Jiang Changbai didn't speak, but nodded in agreement. Despite having spent most of his time in the military camp, he was still a gentleman of a renowned family, and he was well aware of such schemes. Seeing his nod, Zhang Peihuan said, Elder brother, if you don't want any entanglements with cousin Ru in the future, merely avoiding her won't suffice. You must outright reject her. But she is a guest in our home. Moreover, our mother hasn't seen our maternal grandmother in years. If I'm too direct, one fear one might put our mother in a difficult position. You are our mother's own son. Do you really think she would sideline you in favor of a niece? Besides, Have you forgotten about Exine Air? Upon hearing Lu Xin's name, Jiang Shangbai's expression became serious. Turning to Jiang Peihuan, he said, Huan Air, you are right. The siblings soon left the general's mansion. Just as they reached the gate, they saw Jiang Hong's carriage arriving. As Jiang Hong helped Shui Yin out of the carriage, they spotted Jiang Changbai and Jiang Peihuan. Seeing them, Shui Yin said with a smile, Where are you two going at this late hour? Of course, we came to pick you up, Jiang Peihuan responded, approaching to assist Shui Yin. Observing her cheerful demeanor, she deduced that the arrival of old Madame Shui had brought much joy to Shui Yin. For that reason alone, Jiang Peihuan felt she could tolerate the presence of Shui Ru. Mother, has everything been arranged for maternal grandmother? Jiang Peihuan asked softly as she helped Shui Yin inside. Shui Yin, seeing the concern in her eyes, smiled and nodded. Before coming to the capital, your maternal grandmother had already sent someone to clean the residence. Everything is ready. That's good to hear. You don't need to accompany us further. It's too cold. Go back to your courtyard. When they reached a fork in the path, Shui Yin lightly patted Jiang Peihuan's hand and whispered with a smile. Jiang Peihuan didn't insist on continuing, especially since Jiang Hong was by Shui Yan's side. Instead, Jiang Hong said to his son, Escort your sister back to her courtyard. Make sure she doesn't trip. Yes, Jiang Changbai replied, bowing to his parents. He then turned to Jiang Peihuan. Let's go. 111 escort you back. Father, mother, please rest early. Yes, go ahead. After bowing to them, Jiang Peihuan turned to leave. But suddenly, the little wolf cub named Xiao Bai in her arms darted out. However, when Jin Peihuan turned around, Xiao Bai, who was in her arms, suddenly dashed out. Seeing Xiao Bai's abrupt move startled Jiang Peihuan. Xiao Bai, come back. Regardless of Jiang Peihuan's calls, Xiao Bai dashed towards the bushes, followed by the terrified scream of Shui Ru. Get away. Get off of me. Ru Air? Shui Yin, hearing the screams, rushed towards the bushes, with Jiang Peihuan and Jiang Changbai quickly following. When Jiang Peihuan walked over, she saw Xiao Bai biting Shui Ru's calf tightly. Although Xiao Bai was only a wolf cub, it already grew teeth. In addition, Lu Air had been feeding it bones all this time, so Xiao Bai's teeth were quite sharp. Seeing this, Shui Ru's eyes filled with agony. Xiao Bai, come back. Hearing Jiang Peihuan's voice, Xiao Bai loosened its teeth and ran to her side. Jiang Peihuan quickly picked up the wolf cub. Auntie, my leg hurts. Shui Yin was confused by the situation in front of her, but when she heard Shui Ru scream, she quickly shouted, Quick, call the doctor. Subsequently, Shui Yin turned to Jiang Changbai and said, Changbai, quickly carry Ru Air back. Upon hearing Shui Yan's words, Jiang Shangbai's face stiffened. However, seeing this, a hint of a smile appeared in Shui Ru's eyes. But that smile on Shui Ru's face quickly froze as Jiang Peihuan stepped forward, blocking Jiang Changbai. She then said to Shui Yin, Mother, considering the distinction between men and women, it's best if elder brother doesn't do it. I will carry cousin instead. Saying that, Jiang Peihuan handed Xiao Bai over to Jiang Changbai. Without waiting for Shui Ru to respond, Jiang Peihuan bent down and hoisted Shui Ru horizontally off the ground. Having practiced martial arts since childhood, carrying Shui Ru was nothing to Jiang Peihuan. However, being lifted by Jiang Peihuan, Shui Ru's eyes darkened with displeasure. By the time Jiang Peihuan carried Shui Ru back to her courtyard, the doctor had already arrived. After examining Shui Ru, the doctor reassured Shui Yin, Madam, don't worry. The young lattice leg injury is not severe. A few doses of medicine will see her well. Thank you, doctor. You're too polite, madam. Upon hearing the doctor's reassurance, Shui Yin sighed in relief. At this moment, Shui Ru, with a sullen look, glared at Xiao Bai in Jiang Peihuan's arms. Aunt, this dog even bites people. Why not just kill it? Cousin Ru, if you weren't lurking suspiciously behind the bush, Xiao Bai wouldn't have bitten you. How could you just suggest killing Xiao Bai? Before Shui Yin could speak, Jiang Changbai, standing next to Jiang Peihuan, coldly retorted. Hearing this, tears welled up in Shui Ru's eyes. She turned to Shui Yin. Aunt, I was just so scared. Today it bit me, but what if it bites grandmother or you in the future? Hearing this, Shui Yan's eyes were a little conflicted. When Jiang Peihuan heard this, her eyes looked colder than ever. Gently petting Xiao Bei's head, Jiang Peihuan spoke directly when Shui Ru looked at her. Cousin Ru, if Xiao Bai was just an ordinary dog and it bit you, it would be reasonable to kill it. However, Xiao Bai was a gift from King Cheng. Therefore, I can't just kill him. Also, Xiao Bai isn't a dog, it's a wolf. So, to prevent any further harm to you, Cousin Ru, it's best you keep your distance from my courtyard for a few days. What? It's a wolf? And you're keeping it as a pet? Shui Ru pointed at Xiao Bai in Jiang Peihuan's hands, her eyes wide with fear. At that moment, Xiao Bai snarled at Shui Ru. Seeing this, Shui Ru quickly withdrew her hand. Suddenly, Shui Yan felt that her son and daughter didn't seem to like their cousin very much. But since they are her children, she wouldn't let them be wronged for the sake of her niece. So, after hearing Shui Ru's words, Shui Yan directly said to Jiang Peihuan, Huan Air, it's late. You should go rest. Changbai, escort Huan Air back. Watch your step and ensure she doesn't trip. Chapter 221. Gifts, yes, mother. Jiang Changbai had been eager to leave for a while. Hearing Shui Yan's words, he nodded promptly. After paying his respects to Shui Yan, he quickly said to Jiang Peihuan, Huan Air, let's go. Jiang Peihuan bowed to Shui Yan and then followed Jiang Changbai out. Once outside, Jiang Changbai couldn't help but ask Jiang Peihuan, Cousin Ji and Qi both have good personalities. Why is this Cousin Ru so different? Don't say anymore. If mother heard it, wouldn't it make things difficult for her? Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Jiang Changbai remained silent. By the time Jiang Peihuan returned to the plum garden, it was already deep into the night. She laid down on her bed, and Xiao Bai crawled into her blanket. Looking at Xiao Bai, who's only showing its head, Jiang Peihuan playfully tapped its little head. You can't just bite people randomly. Xiao Bai thought that Jiang Peihuan was playing with it. Looking at her outstretched finger, it stuck out its tongue and licked it. Eldest miss, it's already very late. You should go to sleep. Yu Er moved the charcoal fire to the side, then looked at Jiang Peihuan on the bed and said, I know, you should go to sleep too.
Yes.
After the lamp went out, Jiang Peihuan closed her eyes. In the past, during winters, her hands and feet would always feel cold. After reincarnating, not only did she intensify her training, but she also began to take care of her health. Now, she wasn't as cold as before. Winters made everyone feel more sleepy, and Jiang Peihuan was no exception. As she sat up, she saw Yu Er coming in with hot water. Seeing Jiang Peihuan sitting up, Yu Er said with a smile, Eldest miss, you finally woke up. The old madam sent people to ask about you several times. Really? After freshening up, they'll visit grandmother in the chrysanthemum hall. Jiang Peihuan wasn't into dressing up much. So, after a quick wash, she headed straight to chrysanthemum hall. Before reaching the door, she heard laughter inside. Old madam, this is a token of my appreciation. One hope you won't find it too modest. The person who spoke was Lu Xian. Ever since Lu Xian saved the old madam last time, the old madam's attitude towards her had changed a lot. Every time Lu Xian came to visit Lu Xiu, the old madam would also call her to the chrysanthemum hall for a chat. When Jiang Peihuan entered, she saw the old madam holding a forehead ornament, which was elegant and delicately embroidered. Seeing the ornament in old madam's hand, Jiang Peihuan said with a soft laugh, Grandmother, this new ornament suits you very well. This was made by Xian Air. It's a token of her affection. Previously, the old madam looked down on the Lu family for being merchants and didn't want much contact with Lu Xian. Chapter 222. Give it all to him. It was due to Ha Kai's proposal in her past life that Jiang Peihuan came to know about Ha Qi in her previous life. Ha Qi wanted to marry the princess of the Qi kingdom. However, Emperor Qi Ming was reluctant to part with his beloved 9th and 11th princesses. Yet Ha Qi was adamant about the marriage, bringing countless treasures as dowry. Because of these treasures, Emperor Qi Ming eventually agreed to Ha Kai's request, but instead of choosing from the two princesses, he selected from among the daughters of the courtiers. In her previous life, Ha Chi had taken a fancy at her at first glance. However, Xiao Juanhao would never let her be married off to the distant northern borders. Instead, he shifted his attention to Jiang Xijin. Though in the end, Ha Chi dismissed Jiang Xijin due to her young age, she was still forcibly taken to his chamber in her previous life. Because of this, Jiang Xijin bore a reputation that haunted her. In this life, Jiang Peihuan was determined not to let such an event happen again. Eldest miss? Hearing Han Feng's voice, Jiang Peihuan was jolted back to reality. Looking at him, she said softly, I heard about it by chance. Han Feng, hearing this response, was full of confusion. But Jiang Peihuan quickly changed the subject. What did Xiao Nani send you here for? You'll know when you see it, Han Feng said. As he spoke, he gently clapped his hands, and an attendant stepped forward holding a potted plant. In the pot was a plum blossom, but not just any plum blossom. It was the rare green plum. At this point, the young buds on the green plum were already exquisitely beautiful. Seeing the green plum, a smile appeared in Jiang Peihuan's eyes. You heir, take this green plum back to the plum garden.
Yes.
Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Yu heir smiled and stepped forward. Eldest miss, I shall take my leave. Do you have any messages for the master? The weather is getting colder. Tell him to take care of himself.
Yes.
Han Feng bowed respectfully to Jiang Peihuan before leaving the general's mansion. Jiang Peihuan stood quietly outside. Once her emotions settled, she entered the Chrysanthemum Hall. In the Imperial Palace. Are you listening to me? Emperor Qi Ming, looking at the report in his hand, was frustrated. He wanted to discuss banquet matters with Xiao Nani, but when he turned his head, he saw Xiao Nani carefully wiping his jade pendant, occasionally sipping tea, a premium tea from his private collection. Qi Ming had called Xiao Nani several times, but he seemed to ignore him. Dropping the report, Qi Ming looked at Xiao Nani with dissatisfaction. Finally, catching the emperor's voice, Xiao Nani replied, which almost made Qi Ming spit blood in anger. This time, Xiao Nani finally heard Emperor Qi Ming's voice, but the words that came out of his mouth made Emperor Qi Ming so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What were you saying, Imperial brother? I asked about your opinion on the banquet. Qi Ming's eyes were full of anger, but he still managed to keep calm. Hearing this, Xiao Nani nonchalantly responded, just hold the banquet as usual. After all, it's just a small northern kingdom. Why are you so troubled? Seeing Xiao Nani continuously wiping his jade pendant, Qi Ming commented disdainfully, this jade pendant might be of good quality, but the carving is quite crude. I'll get you 2 better ones later. No, I only want this one. Heh, that's odd. Qi Ming looked surprised at Xiao Nani's response. After glancing at the pendant, he said sarcastically, is this jade pendant some kind of treasure? You guessed right, Imperial brother. This pendant is indeed a treasure. It was a gift from Huan Heir. Imperial brother, with all your consorts, has any of them carved a jade pendant for you? It seemed that none had. Seeing Xiao Nani's triumphant expression, Qi Ming felt a bit irked. I heard you hunted a deer last night. After all I've given you, why didn't you gift some of the deer meat to me? Next time, the deer I hunted last night was sent to the general's mansion. Look at you. Qi Ming looked exasperated. All right, you may leave. You're making me annoyed. Seeing Xiao Nani still sitting and wiping his pendant, Qi Ming waved him off irritably. The latter leisurely rose from his chair. As he left, he drained the tea from the table. It seemed he thought of something, and Xiao Nani walked straight to Emperor Qi Ming's desk. What are you doing? Seeing him approach, Emperor Qi Ming's eyes were full of caution. Meeting Emperor Qi Ming's guarded gaze, Xiao Nani softly laughed. Imperial brother, I find this tea quite delightful. I wonder if I could have some. You can't? Get out. Before Xiao Nani could finish, Emperor Qi Ming interrupted him coldly. All right, if you don't want to give it to me, then don't. Hearing Emperor Qi Ming's words, Xiao Nani left the Qinqing Palace without any hard feelings. However, not long after Xiao Nani left, a young eunuch walked in, holding a black cloak in his hands. Seeing him, Emperor Qi Ming coldly asked, What is this? Your Majesty, this is the cloak King Cheng sent you. Hearing the eunuch's words, Emperor Qiming paused, and looking at the cloak in the eunuch's hands, he set down the brush he was holding. Wang Kuan, who was at the side, quickly took the cloak from the eunuch. Presenting it to Emperor Qiming, Wang Kuan smiled. His Highness, King Cheng is very thoughtful. This is made of top-grade ink fox fur. This brat. Touching the cloak in Wang Kun's hand, Emperor Qiming commented. Seeing the smile in Emperor Qiming's eyes, Wang Kuan softly asked, "Would your Majesty like to try it on?" "MHM, let's try it." Wang Kuan dismissed the eunuch and personally helped Emperor Qiming put on the cloak. The size of the cloak was perfect, and Emperor Qiming's eyes shone with happiness. Turning to Wang Kuan, he whispered, "How does it look?" "It makes your Majesty appear even more majestic. Didn't that brat just say the tea was good? Check the storeroom to see how much we have left. Give him some. Never mind. Give it all to him. Also, see if there are other fine teas, and give those to him as well." Emperor Qiming carefully removed the cloak, then cheerfully addressed Wang Kuan. Hearing Emperor Qiming's words, Wang Kuan quickly responded with a smile. "Your Majesty is truly kind to King Cheng. I've watched him grow up since he was a child. If I don't treat him well, who will? In another month, His Highness King Cheng will be getting married. By then, the consort will surely take good care of him." Miss Jiang's character is indeed commendable. She even knows to carve a jade pendant for Nani personally. However, her craftsmanship is rather lacking. Standing to the side, Wang Kuan heard this but remained silent, only smiling. Chapter 223. Reward. Considering her decent nature, go to the storeroom and find something to reward her.
Yes.
After bowing to Emperor Qiming, Wang Kuan prepared to leave. However, just as he reached the door, he heard Emperor Qiming's voice from behind. "Wait, Your Majesty, do you have any other instructions?" Hearing the Emperor's voice, Wang Kuan immediately halted and turned to look at him. "After you've selected the items, don't send the young eunuch. Go personally. It can be seen as a gesture of goodwill from me to Xiao Nani." Hearing Emperor Qiming's words, Wang Kun's eyes showed surprise, but he still nodded with a smile. Yes, Xiao Nani did not know anything about this. At that moment, Xiao Nani was heading out of the palace. Zhuo Ma, who had just entered, instinctively turned her head. Upon seeing Xiao Nani, her eyes were filled with admiration. Who is this man? Zhuo Ma wanted to chase after him, but Xiao Nani had already left the palace. Watching the man's back as he got into the carriage, Zhuo Ma looked at the palace maid beside her excitedly. "Who is that?" "Princess, that is His Highness King Cheng." "King Cheng? Is he also the Emperor's son?" "No, His Highness King Cheng is the Emperor's younger brother and the imperial uncle of the princes." "Is he married?" Hearing Zhuo Ma's question, the palace maid standing nearby showed surprise but still whispered, "King Cheng isn't married yet, but he? Where is the King Cheng mansion?" Zhuo Ma got the answer she wanted and lost interest in the rest. Although unsure of Zhuo Ma's intentions, the palace maid still provided the address. As Zhuo Ma left the palace, Wang Kuan went to the general's mansion with the rewards. Zhang Peihuan had just eaten venison in the chrysanthemum hall and was chatting with the old madam when she heard that the chief eunuch from the emperor's side had arrived. Thinking of past events involving her family, Zhang Peihuan's heart raced. Although many things had changed in this life, she still felt a bit panicked. Deputy General Liu, who was walking beside Zhang Peihuan, sensed her unease and quickly reassured her. "Eldest miss, don't worry." One saw Wang Kuan smiling, and the young eunuchs behind him are carrying many items. Hearing this, Zhang Peihuan's eyes revealed some surprise. When Zhang Peihuan arrived at the main hall, all the members of the Zhang family were already there. Even Xueru, assisted by a maid, had come out. Wang Kuan was drinking tea. Seeing Zhang Peihuan approach, he immediately set down his cup and said with a smile, "Eldest miss, you've arrived. Prepare to receive the emperor's decree." Zhang Peihuan stepped forward and knelt respectfully. The emperor has ordered that Zhang Peihuan, the eldest daughter of the general's mansion, has a noble personality and good moral character. She is hereby granted special rewards. After speaking, Wang Kuan gestured to the eunuchs behind him to present the rewards to Jiang Peihuan. Jiang Xijin and Jiang Ruyun immediately stepped forward to accept the gifts. When Jiang Peihuan got up, she saw the rewards are mostly jewelry. However, she couldn't understand why Emperor Qi Ming would suddenly reward her. Was it because of the grain transport last time? But so much time had passed since then. Even if the emperor wanted to reward her for that, he wouldn't have waited until now. Eldest Miss, congratulations. At this moment, Wang Kuan approached Jiang Peihuan to offer his congratulations. Seeing him, Jiang Peihuan stepped forward, giving a slight curtsy. Then she said with a smile, "Thank you, Chief Eunuch." While speaking, Jiang Peihuan handed a pouch personally to Wang Kuan. The pouch felt light, clearly not containing gold or silver, but probably a banknote. Accepting the pouch, the smile in Wang Kun's eyes deepened. Looking at Jiang Peihuan, he whispered, "Eldest Miss truly is a person of delicate and exquisite character. Chief Eunuch, you flatter me." Smiling, Jiang Peihuan lowered her voice and said, "Chief Eunuch, there's something I don't understand, and I hope you can enlighten me. I dare not claim such a role, Eldest Mississippi. If you have questions, just ask me directly. Why has the emperor suddenly bestowed so many jewels?" Seeing the confusion in Jiang Peihuan's eyes, Wang Kun's smile remained unchanged. As she looked to him for answers, he whispered back, "For this question, Miss might want to ask King Cheng. Because of Xiao Nani?" "Thank you, Chief Eunuch." Smiling, Jiang Peihuan gave a small curtsy and said, "They'll see you out, Chief Eunuch." When they reached the entrance of the general's mansion, Wang Kuan smiled and said to Jiang Peihuan, "Eldest Miss, it's fine. One can carry on myself from here. Chief Eunuch, take care." Wang Kuan smiled and nodded before boarding the carriage. Returning to the main hall, Jiang Peihuan heard an exclamation. "These jewels are so beautiful. Cousin Ru'er, these are imperial gifts. Except for elder sister, ordinary people shouldn't touch them casually." Jiang Xijin saw Shui Ru trying to pin a gold hairpin in her hair, and she immediately took it back. Seeing Jiang Xijin's action, Shui Ru's eyes flashed with displeasure. Spotting Jiang Peihuan entering, she turned to her and said, "Cousin Huan Er, the emperor has given you so many gifts, you probably can't use all these jewels. How about sharing some with us?" Both Jiang Ruyun and Jiang Xijin were shocked by this. Shui Ru was Shui Yan's niece after all, so Jiang Ruyun, the niece of the second branch, couldn't say anything. However, Jiang Xijin spoke directly. "Cousin Ru'er, you know that this is an imperial gift. Don't you know that imperial gifts cannot be given to others? As long as you keep quiet, who will know?" Upon hearing Shui Ru's audacious words, even the normally proud Jiang Xijin was left speechless. Jiang Peihuan's expression darkened at this scene. Yet, seemingly thinking of something, Jiang Peihuan smiled at Shui Ru and said, "If Cousin Ru'er likes that gold hairpin, they'll gift it to you. However, it's an imperial gift. If someone finds out, it might bring fatal trouble. So, Cousin Ru, keep it for personal enjoyment and never wear it outside." As she spoke, Jiang Peihuan had already handed the golden hairpin to Shui Ru. Taking it from Jiang Peihuan, excitement filled Shui Ru's eyes. But hearing Jiang Peihuan's warning, her smile faded a bit. Jiang Peihuan didn't look at her any longer and turned to Jiang Xijin and Jiang Ruyun. "Both of you, help me take these items to the plum garden." "Yes, big sister." "Yes, elder sister." On the way, Jiang Xijin managed to hold her tongue. But once they reached the plum garden, she couldn't hold back any longer. Chapter 224. "Go find someone else." Looking at Jiang Peihuan, she said with indignation in her eyes, "Eldest sister, why did you give the golden hairpin granted to you by the emperor to Cousin Ru? Since she asked for it, it wouldn't be right to refuse her completely. No matter what, she's mother's niece. For mother's sake, we can't be too calculative." But one guess she wouldn't dare wear the golden hairpin outside. She can only look at it and not use it. The one who will suffer is her. Hearing the first part of Jiang Peihuan's words, Jiang Xijin had a hint of melancholy in her eyes, but after hearing the last sentence, her eyes were filled with smiles. Looking at Jiang Peihuan, she gave a thumbs up with a smile. "Eldest sister, you're the smart one." If you like any of these items, you can take them. Zhang Peihuan didn't particularly care for these jewels and ornaments. Moreover, Xiaonani had also gifted many to her in the past, which she had simply stored away. After speaking with Jiang Xijin, Zhang Peihuan turned to Jiang Ruyun. You two can choose what you like. In a little over a month, you'll marry into the Chao family. Consider these items as my dowry gift to you. Thank you, elder sister. But these items are imperial gifts. Would it be a problem if the emperor found out? Although she was tempted by the jewelry, Jiang Ruyun still had reservations. Hearing her words, Zhang Peihuan whispered, "It's fine. It's not as strict as it was during the previous dynasty. Second sister, don't overthink. If Cousin Ru dares to take them, what do we have to worry about?" Jiang Xijin used to dislike Jiang Ruyun, but seeing Shui Ru's attitude now, she suddenly felt that Jiang Ruyun was much better. Everything seems worse when compared. Eldest sister, I want this jade pendant. As she spoke, Jiang Xijin had already picked up a pair of jade pendants from the tray. Zhang Peihuan nodded without speaking. Jiang Xijin quickly chose her items, but Jiang Ruyun hesitated over hairpins. In the end, she picked up a pearl hairpin. Looking at Zhang Peihuan, Jiang Ruyun whispered, "Elder sister, I want this pearl hairpin. This one's yours. And this set of ornaments, give it to our second aunt when you go back." "Elder sister, this is too valuable. It's just a set of ornaments. It's not a big deal." "Thank you very much, elder sister." Zhang Ruyun quietly thanked her as she looked at the items that Zhang Peihuan handed over. After Zhang Ruyun left, Zhang Peihuan handed another set of ornaments to Jiang Xijin. "Take this set to the elegant garden and give it to our third aunt." "All right." Subsequently, Zhang Peihuan also chose some gifts for old Madame Jiang and Shui Yan. Even for old Madame Shui and the two ladies of the Shui family, Zhang Peihuan didn't leave them out. By the time she had distributed all the items, the trays on the table were nearly empty. However, Zhang Peihuan was still curious about what Xiaonani had done to earn such a reward from Emperor Qiming at this time. Zhang Peihuan waited for Xiaonani to arrive and inquire, but he didn't show up all night. "Eldest miss, it's getting late. You should rest." Yuera carefully moved the brazier aside and then turned to advise Zhang Peihuan. Zhang Peihuan glanced outside and softly asked, "Has it started snowing heavily outside?" "Yes, it seems this winter will be very cold." "All right, you should go and rest too."
Yes.
After bowing to Zhang Peihuan, Yu left her room. When Zhang Peihuan lay down, Xiaobai quickly ran up to the bed, finding its usual spot. Seeing its movements, Zhang Peihuan softly chuckled. "You sure know your place. Could it be that the snowstorm was too intense?" Zhang Peihuan lay down, filled with doubts. She realized that she seemed to have gotten used to seeing Xiaonani every day. At this moment, Xiaonani was looking coldly at the woman named Zhuo Ma in front of him. He was about to leave for the general's mansion, but just as he reached the door, he heard the doorkeeper announce that Princess Zhuo Ma had come to visit. With cold eyes fixed on Zhuo Ma as she entered the main hall, Xiaonani's expression showed no warmth. Zhuo Ma, on the other hand, did not seem to notice the coldness in the man's eyes. She walked forward with a smile. "Your Highness, one hope you'll forgive my sudden visit. Princess Zhuo Ma came to my Chung mansion late at night. Is there something you need?" "Indeed, I have a request. Being new to the capital, am not very familiar with it. I was hoping that you might be willing to show me around." Hearing this, Han Feng, standing next to Xiaonani, widened his eyes. If the situation had been different, he would have applauded this princess from the grasslands for her audacity. "You should find someone else. I'm not available." Xiaonani declined flatly. "Your Highness, Han Feng, see our guest out." Zhuo Ma hadn't expected Xiaonani to refuse her so bluntly. As she stood up from her chair, preparing to say something else, he cut her off. She tried to approach him, but Han Feng blocked her way. "Princess Zhuo Ma, please." She shot Han Feng a fierce look before leaving the mansion. However, instead of departing right away, she had her carriage brought to the side. She had noticed earlier that Xiaonani was about to leave his mansion, and she wanted to find out where he was heading. "Master, Princess Zhuo Ma hasn't left yet," Han Feng whispered, having noticed her lurking in the shadows. Xiaonani glanced coldly in her direction, murmuring, Ignore her. He always disregarded things, and people he deemed unimportant. Shortly after, Xiaonani and Han Feng mounted their horses. Seeing this, Zhuoma rode over. Your Highness, where are you headed? May I accompany you? Han Feng was speechless. He couldn't believe someone, especially a princess, could be so shameless. Without sparing her a glance, Xiaonani signaled to his horse, which immediately bolted forward. Han Feng quickly followed. Zhuoma clenched her teeth, raising her own whip to spur her horse on. But by the time she rounded the corner, following the sound of hooves, Xiaonani and Han Feng had disappeared from sight. Staring at the direction in which they'd vanished, Zhuoma's grip tightened in frustration. Meanwhile, in the general's mansion, Plum Garden, the lights in Jiang Paihuan's room were out. Xiaonani stood in the courtyard, quietly approaching her door. He gently pushed it open. There was a faint fragrance in the air, and the man's eyes became gentle. In the darkness, the man slowly walked to the bedside. Chapter 225. It shouldn't sleep on the bed anymore at that moment. As Xiaonani approached the bed, Xiaobai lying next to Jiang Peihuan opened its eyes. However, upon recognizing that the intruder was Xiaonani, it closed its eyes again. Jiang Peihuan, on the other hand, didn't wake up even when Xiaonani sat down by her bed. The darkness didn't hinder Xiaonani's vision. As he gazed at Jiang Peihuan on the bed, his eyes softened. Admiring Jiang Peihuan's beautiful face, he couldn't help but reach out and gently touch her cheek. That touch made Jiang Peihuan open her eyes. Seeing Xiaonani sitting beside her bed, she was somewhat dazed. Xiaonani, can you actually enter my dreams? When Jiang Peihuan opened her eyes, Xiaonani was startled, feeling like a child caught doing something mischievous. But her words left him dumbfounded. After a moment, he couldn't help but chuckle. Do you really think this is a dream? He reached out to her again, but this time, Jiang Peihuan grabbed his hand. Xiaonani. It took her a few seconds to realize that this wasn't a dream and that he had indeed sneaked into her room. Sitting up, Jiang Peihuan looked at the man beside her bed with disbelief. Meeting her gaze, Xiaonani felt a rare moment of awkwardness. Did I wake you up? I just wanted to see you. I won't disturb you. As he finished speaking, he prepared to leave, but Jiang Peihuan grabbed his sleeve. Facing his puzzled look, she whispered, There's a snowstorm outside. Wait it out here. Han Feng, who was standing on the tree outside and facing the wind and snow, heard the conversation in the room. His eyes were filled with resentment. But soon, Han Feng stopped complaining because Jiang Peihuan's door was opened a crack. Then, a white figure was thrown out. Xiaobai, who was tossed out, rolled a few times in the snow. Then, with wide eyes, it looked confusedly at Xiaonani at the door. If you dare to sleep on the bed again, I'll skin you alive. After saying that, Xiaonani closed the door. Realizing it had been left outside, Xiaobai rushed to the door, scratching it desperately. Han Feng, who was on the tree, saw this scene and quickly flew down to hold Xiaobai in his arms. Seeing that Xiaobai was tired to escape, Han Feng said in a soft voice, I advise you not to disturb Master and Eldest Mississippi, otherwise, your wolf skin will really be peeled off. Perhaps understanding Han Feng's words, or feeling too cold, Xiaobai shivered. Smiling, Han Feng tucked Xiaobai into his cloak. Seeing Xiaobai trying to escape, Han Feng said with a smile, Just stay inside my cloak. While it's not as warm as the eldest Miss bed, it's still warm. Moreover, I'm quite bored up in this tree alone. Keep me company. Afterward, a man and a wolf silently crouched in the tree, watching the door to Jiang Peihuan's room. Inside the room, Jiang Peihuan, now on her bed, looked at the closed door and was speechless. Looking at the man sitting by her bed, she couldn't help but ask, Why on earth did you throw Xiaobai out? It shouldn't sleep on the bed anymore. Why? Having Xiaobai's warmth, Jiang Peihuan always felt cozier in bed. Because it shouldn't. Facing Jiang Peihuan's puzzled look, the man cleared his throat and continued, If it gets into the habit, I'll probably always want to sleep on the bed. Are you suggesting that after our wedding, one should make room for it? His voice filled with lament. Xiao Nanyes's eyes showed a hint of jealousy. He wouldn't admit it, but he was jealous. He hadn't even laid down on Jiang Peihuan's bed yet. Why should a wolf like Xiao Bai get to? Jiang Peihuan always felt there was something off about Xiao Nanyes's words, but she couldn't pinpoint the issue immediately. She didn't want to dwell on the topic of whether to sleep or not with Xiao Nani, so she brought up the matter of the gifts bestowed upon her by Emperor Qiming. Looking at the man by her bedside, Jiang Peihuan softly said, "I asked Chief Eunuch Wang, and he mentioned it was due to you. What did you do to make the Emperor grant me these gifts?" Hearing this, Xiao Nani raised an eyebrow. Smiling gently at Jiang Peihuan, he replied, "Since the Emperor has given you a gift, just accept it. I didn't do much. One just sent him a cloak from the storeroom." Jiang Peihuan was speechless. Whether it was in her past life or this one, she had always heard of Emperor Qiming's extreme fondness for his only brother, Xiao Nani. She hadn't believed it before, but now she truly did. After chatting a bit more, Jiang Peihuan couldn't help but yawn continuously. Seeing her continuous yawning, Xiao Nani stood up, then said to Jiang Peihuan, "You should rest. They'll be leaving now." Truly feeling drowsy, Jiang Peihuan nodded in agreement. Watching Jiang Peihuan lie down, Xiao Nani carefully draped the blanket over her and then quietly exited the room. Just as Xiao Nani stepped out, Han Feng, holding Xiao Bai, descended from the tree. "Master, are we leaving now?" Han Feng asked, worried he might freeze to death on that tree if they lingered any longer. "Yes, let's go." Seeing Xiao Nanyes nod, Han Feng's eyes lit up with joy, and he quickly followed. As they reached the wall, it seemed Han Feng remembered something. He took Xiao Bai out from his cloak and placed it on the ground. Xiao Nani gave it a glance before departing with Han Feng. Xiao Bai, left behind, immediately ran to Jiang Peihuan's door. It carefully pushed the door open with its paws and dashed in. In her drowsy state, Jiang Peihuan faintly heard some movement. Opening her eyes, she saw Xiao Bai lying beside her. Remembering what that man had said, Jiang Peihuan looked at Xiao Bai with a full smile. "Xiao Bai, go to sleep." She stroked its head, then closed her eyes. Outside the general manor, Zhuama sat in a carriage. Even though there had been a coal fire in the carriage, it had long since died out, making her feel so cold her hands were stiffening. Just as she was considering whether to leave or not, she heard her maid's excited voice, "Princess, King Cheng has come out." Hearing the announcement, Zhuama immediately lifted the curtain and, upon seeing Xiao Nani on horseback, her eyes filled with excitement. Turning her gaze, Zhuama stared intently at the general's mansion. As for all these matters, Jiang Peihuan remained oblivious. Perhaps winter really was a season to sleep deeply, as she slept soundly until daylight. "Eldest miss, are you awake?" Chapter 226. I want to marry King Cheng Yu'er, who was outside the door, heard the commotion inside and called out in a soft voice, "I'm awake. Come in." Hearing Jiang Peihuan's voice, Yu'er opened the door and placed the hot water she was holding on a shelf. With a smile, she approached Jiang Peihuan. "Did eldest miss sleep well last night?"
Yes.
"Ever since this heavy snow began, I've been sleeping later and later each day." "That's good. You usually wake up early, eldest Mississippi. Now, it's a perfect time for you to rest." Hearing Yu'er's words, Jiang Peihuan smiled without commenting. Just as she had finished freshening up, Lu Er burst into the room in a fluster. Seeing her in such a state, Yu'er frowned. "Lu Er, what's the matter?" Seeing the look in Yu'er's eyes, Lu Er paused before apologizing to Jiang Peihuan. "Miss, I'm sorry, What happened?" Without waiting for Lu Er to finish speaking, Jiang Peihuan interrupted her softly. She thought Lu Er would have learned from the previous incident, but in such a short span of time, Lu Er had reverted to her old ways. Jiang Peihuan felt a touch of helplessness. Realizing her lapse, Lu Er said urgently, "Princess Zhuama from the Grassland tribe has come, specifically asking to see you." "Princess Zhuama?" Seeing Lu Er nod, surprise filled Jiang Peihuan's eyes. In her past life, Princess Zhuama never visited the Qi Kingdom. But in this life, many things seemed different from before. Lost in her thoughts, Jiang Peihuan suddenly heard fighting noises outside. With a frown, she headed out. Frowning, Jin Peihuan walked out directly. In the courtyard, Zhuoma dodged a sword thrust from Yishao. Her horsewhip lashed towards Yishao's face. "You dare to stop me, wretch?" Jiang Peihuan, who had just stepped out, heard Zhuoma's words, and her expression instantly turned icy. "Yishao, stand down." Hearing Jiang Peihuan's voice, Yishao immediately retreated to the side. However, at this moment, Zhuoma's eyes revealed a hint of gloominess. With a flip of her wrist, the horsewhip in her hand whipped Yishao's back. Jiang Peihuan's eyes turned cold when she saw this. Reaching for her waist, Jiang Peihuan swung the long black whip in her hand. Her whip entangled Zhuoma's, yanking it from her grasp. Tossing Zhuoma's whip aside, Jiang Peihuan retracted her own. Her gaze cold as ice. "Princess Zhuoma, is it appropriate for you to come to my courtyard and attack my people so early in the morning?" Zhuoma didn't respond immediately, instead sizing up Jiang Peihuan. The night before, she had learned that Xiao Nani was not yet married, but did have a fiancé, Jiang Peihuan. Zhuoma assessed Jiang Peihuan's features, and a hint of jealousy crept into her eyes. "I just wanted to speak with Miss Jiang. I didn't expect your servant to block my way." One lost my temper. Please forgive me. Seeing Zhuoma's sudden change in demeanor, Jiang Peihuan's brow furrowed. Zhuoma awaited a reply, but when none came, she stepped forward. "I'd like to explore the capital. Miss Jiang, I'm new to the Qi Kingdom and don't know anyone here. Why don't you show me around?" She added, "By the way, the Emperor of Qi has agreed to this." Hearing Zhuoma's words, Jiang Peihuan hesitated briefly before nodding. "Very well." An hour later, Jiang Peihuan and Zhuoma walked to the entrance of the general's mansion together. Just as Jiang Peihuan was about to board the carriage, she was stopped by Zhuoma. Meeting her puzzled gaze, Zhuoma said with a meaningful smile, "Miss Jiang, as you may know, I grew up on the grasslands. Women of the grasslands are accustomed to horse riding. I'm not used to sitting in this carriage. Why don't you ride with me?" When she came, Zhuoma had asked around. Most young ladies in the capital were delicate and frail. Looking at Jiang Peihuan, she seemed gentle and fragile. She didn't believe Jiang Peihuan could ride a horse in such cold weather. However, what unfolded before her eyes left Zhuoma stunned. "Well, as the princess wishes." Upon hearing Zhuoma's words, Jiang Peihuan nodded and then whistled sharply with her fingers to her lips. Soon, the sound of galloping hooves approached. Lai Feng ran directly to Jiang Peihuan. Gently patting its head, she mounted the horse with ease. Seeing Jin Peihuan's agile movements, Zhuoma was stunned. This wasn't what she had anticipated. Not only was Jiang Peihuan skilled, but both Yishao and Yu also displayed agility. Witnessing this, Zhuoma couldn't hold back any longer. Weren't the women of the capital said to be frail? Then why are you? While many ladies in the capital may be delicate, my family hails from a military background. One grew up in a military camp. Therefore, for me, riding and archery are as common as daily meals. Hearing this, Zhuoma shut her mouth, not wanting to utter another word. The group rode their horses towards the city. Upon reaching a street food stall at the city entrance, Jiang Peihuan stopped. Following her lead, Zhuoma dismounted and, taking in the scene, her eyes showed a hint of curiosity. Still, she asked with some displeasure, "Is this where you brought me? I'm hungry. I want to eat something first." Having said that, Jiang Peihuan sat down at a nearby dumpling stall. Turning to Zhuoma, she softly inquired, "Would the princess like some?" Zhuoma instinctively wanted to decline. However, as the stall owner lifted the lid off the pot, the aromatic scent reached her nostrils. Her initial refusal turned into, "Since you're eating, I'll join you, boss." 6 bowls of dumplings. Considering the 2 maids accompanying Princess Zhuoma, Jiang Peihuan ordered 6 bowls in total. Both Zhuoma and Jiang Peihuan sat at the same table. After finishing their meal, Zhuoma felt a slight lift in her mood. But recalling her purpose for meeting Jiang Peihuan, her smile faded. As Jiang Peihuan was about to stand up, Zhuoma spoke. "Jiang Peihuan, Hearing Zhuo Ma's voice, Jiang Peihuan turned to look at her. Jiang Peihuan, I want to marry King Cheng. Meeting Jiang Peihuan's gaze, Zhuo Ma spoke directly. Hearing this, surprise flashed in Jiang Peihuan's eyes, but it quickly vanished. Chapter 227 I believe he won't marry you. Looking at Zhuo Ma, Jiang Peihuan nodded. One understand? Zhuo Ma had expected that after she spoke, Jiang Peihuan would fly into a rage. She had envisioned all possible outcomes, but she hadn't expected Jiang Peihuan to remain so calm. Seeing Jiang Peihuan get up, she couldn't help but rise as well. Staring at Jiang Peihuan, she asked coldly, Aren't you angry? Why should I be? Zhuo Ma stared intently into Jiang Peihuan's eyes, noticing that her expression was truly without a ripple of emotion. Zhuo Ma felt a flash of anger. Stop pretending. I know the Emperor of the Qi Kingdom has decreed your marriage to King Cheng. I want to marry him. I don't believe you aren't angry. Princess Zhuo Ma, as you said, you want to marry King Cheng. Thus, you should be speaking to him about this, not me. If you can get His Highness King Cheng to agree, I definitely won't stop you from marrying him. Of course, I believe that he won't marry you. Huan heir. As soon as Jiang Peihuan finished speaking, she heard a familiar voice. She turned around and saw Xiao Nani sitting on the horse's back. Xiao Juanhao was beside him. Xiao Nani got off his horse and walked to Jiang Peihuan's side. Looking at Jiang Peihuan, Xiao Nani said directly, Believe me, one have nothing to do with her. When did you arrive? A while ago. Hearing his words, Jiang Peihuan's eyes sparkled. So you heard everything I just said? Xiao Nani remained silent, simply nodding. When he heard Jiang Peihuan's indifferent words earlier, Xiao Nani felt a bit panicked, but after hearing her final words, he was delighted. Why did you leave the mansion? Princess Zhuo Ma wanted me to accompany her on a stroll, so I went out, and Imperial Brother asked me to inspect the situation of the guards in the capital. King Cheng, Zhuo Ma had been standing by the side. Seeing that Xiao Nani was only talking to Jiang Peihuan, a trace of jealousy flashed in her eyes. She walked up to him. Looking at Zhuo Ma, who was walking towards him, Xiao Nani's eyes revealed a hint of annoyance. The gentleness in his eyes instantly disappeared. He looked at Zhuo Ma coldly, but he did not say anything. Your Highness King Cheng, we just met last night at your mansion. Do you still remember? Hearing Zhuo Ma's words, Xiao Nani frowned and subconsciously looked at Jiang Peihuan. Seeing that she didn't look upset, he let out a sigh of relief. Without giving Zhuo Ma another glance, Xiao Nani turned to Han Feng. Order that aside from Huan heir, no other woman is allowed to step into my mansion.
Yes.
When Han Feng heard his master's order, he hurriedly nodded in response. Zhuo Ma's expression turned ugly when she heard this. Imperial uncle, Princess Zhuo Ma is a distinguished guest after all. This seems a bit too cold-hearted of you. Xiao Juanhao, who had been silent all this while, glanced at Zhuo Ma and Jiang Peihuan, then laughed. Hearing his voice, a smile appeared on Zhuo Ma's face. Xiao Nani sneered. Since Prince Qing is so hospitable, you can take care of Princess Zhuo Ma. If you like her, you might as well take her into your mansion. After all, you've already chosen your main and side consorts. What's one more? Hearing Xiao Nani's words, Xiao Junhao's eyes darkened. When Jiang Yin became his main consort, his position as prince had already been denied by the emperor, mainly because of the rebellion of King Chujiang. If he were to marry a princess from a grassland tribe, his fate would be sealed. Imperial uncle, you must be joking. Princess Zhuo Ma is obviously in love with you. What a joke. Just because she's fond of me, does that mean I have to marry her? There are countless women in this world who are fond of me. Should I marry them all and let them eat freely at my mansion? Hearing what Xiao Nani said, Zhuo Ma's face was beyond the description of unpleasant. However, Xiao Nani didn't even bother to look at the two. He turned to Jiang Peihuan and said, Since we've left the mansion, why not let me accompany you for a stroll? When speaking to Jiang Peihuan, Xiao Nani's expression was tender. Seeing Xiao Nani's change in demeanor, Zhuo Ma clenched her fists in frustration. Xiao Junhao's face was also unpleasant to behold. From the beginning to end, Xiao Juanhao's gaze remained fixed on Jiang Peihuan, Yet she never once looked back at him. Did he really become an irrelevant stranger in her eyes? Zhang Peihuan wasn't aware of Xiao Junhao's thoughts. Somehow, over time, her intense hatred for Xiao Juanhao had somewhat waned, replaced more by annoyance. Hearing Xiao Nani, Zhang Peihuan whispered, "Don't you have official duties?" "No matter. No task is more important than you." After speaking, Xiao Nani turned to Xiao Juanhao. "Prince Qing, this duty is yours now. Huan Er, let's go." Saying this, Xiao Nani reached out and took Zhang Peihuan by the wrist. At that moment, Zhuama blocked their path. Despite seeing Xiao Nanya's ominous expression, she said softly, "King Cheng, I have received permission from the Emperor of Qi to have eldest Miss Zhang accompany me around the capital. Are you going against the Emperor's decree?" "Humph." Hearing Zhuama's words, Xiao Nani sneered and took Zhang Peihuan's hand and left. Zhuama wanted to follow, but Han Feng pulled out his sword and aimed it at Zhuama. "Princess, one advise you not to follow." While Han Feng spoke with a faint smile, his eyes bore no humor, only a stern warning. As he spoke, Xiao Nani and Zhang Peihuan had already moved quite a distance away. The streets were covered in snow, but many people had set up their stalls. Since it was the capital, it was still bustling. However, as they walked, Zhang Peihuan noticed several beggars. Seeing them, she turned to Xiao Nani and said, "There are so many beggars in the city now?" Following her gaze, Xiao Nani also saw the beggars, his eyes reflecting a moment of silence. The recent heavy snow has affected the surrounding farmers. This year has been colder than previous ones. So many can't survive. If it's like this in the capital, isn't it worse in the surrounding towns? Indeed it is. Hearing this, Zhang Peihuan turned to him and said, "Does the emperor know about this? Has he taken any measures?" "The officials haven't reported the situation yet." As he said this, Xiao Nanya's eyes were filled with mockery. Seeing his expression, Zhang Peihuan's face also darkened. The emperor cannot leave the palace at will. If the ministers don't report, even if there are dead bodies everywhere outside the palace, the emperor will never know. Chapter 228. I plan to use my personal savings, never mind. I don't want to wander around anymore. Xiao Nani, one want to go back. The further they went, the more beggars they saw, making Zhang Peihuan lose her mood for leisurely strolling. Although she wasn't particularly kind-hearted, seeing children with frostbitten hands and feet still tugged at her heartstrings. Xiao Nani obviously understood Zhang Peihuan's feelings. After hearing her, he nodded. "They'll take you back." "All right." Zhang Peihuan didn't refuse and returned with Xiao Nani to the general's mansion. However, when they arrived at the entrance of the mansion, Zhang Peihuan said to him, "I've made up my mind. I plan to discuss with my family elders about distributing porridge in the city. Even if the ministers haven't reported it yet, can you mention it to the emperor? Even if Emperor Qiming does nothing, he will at least know of their intentions and will likely have no objections." Understanding her meaning, Xiao Nani nodded. "Don't worry, 111 speak to my imperial brother. You do whatever you want, no one will gossip." "All right, 111 go in then." "Go ahead." Jin Peihuan nodded at Xiao Nani and walked into the general's mansion. Xiao Nani stood outside. When he saw her figure disappear through the door, he turned around and left. After entering the mansion, Zhang Peihuan went directly to the Chrysanthemum Hall. When she arrived, all the family members were there, even Jian Mei. The old Madame Zhang treated Jian Mei indifferently, but due to her pregnancy, she wasn't overly cold to her. "Old Madam, eldest Miss is here." Nanny Su announced Zhang Peihuan's arrival. Upon hearing this, old Madame Zhang's eyes immediately revealed a smile. By this time, Zhang Peihuan had entered the main hall. "Grandmother." After greeting her grandmother, she greeted Zhou Rongfang and Lu Xiao. "Weren't you accompanying Princess Shuama around? Why are you back so soon?" "I met His Highness King Cheng on the way, so I came back early." Sitting next to her grandmother, Zhang Peihuan said softly, "Grandmother, there's something one want to discuss with you." "What is it?" Zhou Rongfang and Lu Xiao turned their attention to Zhang Peihuan. Meeting everyone's gaze, Zhang Peihuan said, "Grandmother, While wandering the city today, one saw many beggars, many of whom were just children. I want to distribute porridge in the city, and I hope you can agree. This distribution will take at least 7 days, and it'll be a significant amount of money. Before the old madam could respond, Zhou Rongfang quickly interjected. Mother. Hearing this, Jiang Ruyun frowned, pulled Zhou Rongfang's sleeve to signal her to keep quiet. Isn't that a bit too rushed? Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Jiang Ruyun looked surprised. But Jiang Peihuan simply shook her head. In winter, nights are the hardest. Having some warm porridge might at least warm them up. An hour later, Jiang Peihuan, along with Jiang Ruyun and Jiang Xijin, started preparing. While Jiang Peihuan was busy, a voice reached her. Cousin, what are you all up to? Shui Ru's foot hadn't completely healed, but with the help of a maid, she could walk normally. At this moment, seeing Jiang Peihuan directing people to load things onto carriages, confusion filled her eyes. We're going to distribute porridge in the city. Cousin Ru, would you like to come along? Chapter 229. Giving porridge. Jiang Peihuan was feeling anxious at the moment. As winter days grew dark quickly, she really had no mood to deal with Shui Ru. Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Shui Ru looked upset. Why waste good food on beggars? You must be overly fed. Miss Shui, please be careful with your words. Beggars are also humans. We should have compassion in our hearts. How can you speak like this? Jiang Ruyun looked furious hearing Shui Ru's comments. Jiang Peihuan, however, didn't even glance at Shui Ru and turned to Jiang Xijin. Is everything ready? Don't worry, eldest sister. Everything is ready. All right, let's go. Yes. Jiang Peihuan exited the main door and mounted her horse. Seeing her actions, Jiang Ruyun and Jiang Xijin also mounted theirs, following behind Jiang Peihuan. Watching the impressive convoy depart, Shui Ru's eyes darkened. Elder sister, why is Cousin Ru so annoying? Just ignore her. Pretend she's invisible. The group went straight to the city center market. As Jiang Peihuan dismounted, Deputy General Liu immediately approached. Eldest Miss Jiang? Let's start cooking the porridge. Yes. As Jiang Peihuan proceeded, numerous beggars had already gathered, crowding the place. She didn't need to think to know there were even more outside the city. As heavy snowfall continued, these beggars were still dressed in thin clothes. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan frowned. Deputy General Liu? Eldest Mississippi. Go to the city's cloth shop and buy ready-made cotton clothes. They don't have to be of fine quality. Coarse cloth will suffice. Buy in bulk. Eldest Jiang, these clothes aren't cheap. Hearing Jiang Peihuan's instructions, Deputy General Liu glanced at the beggars. There was a hint of pity and sympathy in his eyes, but he still voiced his concerns. Jiang Peihuan simply smiled. It's fine. As she spoke, Jiang Peihuan handed a thick stack of silver notes to Deputy General Liu. Yes, I'll go right away. Taking the silver notes from Jiang Peihuan's hands, Deputy General Liu nodded softly. Remember, be quick. Yes. After Deputy General Liu left, Jiang Peihuan instructed the people to start cooking the porridge. When the rice was poured into the pot, the eyes of the beggars were filled with desire. Jiang Peihuan walked over to them, speaking softly, Everyone, this porridge stall will be here for the next few days, ensuring everyone gets some. However, I request you to form a line. Also, let the children and the elderly come forward first. The strong men stand behind. Though her voice was soft, due to the stillness of the night, everyone could hear her. Miss Jiang was here last winter, distributing porridge. This year, she's here again. Line up and follow Miss Jiang's instructions. Many of these beggars were farmers nearby. However, due to the continuous war in the past 2 years and the sudden snowfall this year, these farmers had no choice but to become beggars. Among the beggars, many were local farmers. Continuous warfare and sudden heavy snow this year left them with no choice but to become beggars. Many had seen Jiang Peihuan distributing porridge before, so they naturally started to form a line. First came the children, then the elderly, followed by women, and lastly men. Most obeyed the rules, but a few were always troublemakers. It's time to start distributing the porridge. With Jiang Saijin's command, the crowd began to buzz with excitement. Although most of the crowd could restrain themselves, just as a little boy at the front, around 5 or 6 years old, was about to receive his porridge, two men pushed their way to the front. The little boy, barely able to hold the bowl steady, was jostled by the two men. His porridge spilled, but luckily it splashed onto the ground and not on him. However, when Jiang Peihuan saw this, anger flashed in her eyes. "What are you two doing? Go to the back of the line." Jiang Xijin, known for her temper, was also filled with rage. But the two men not only refused to leave, but they also replied with brazen confidence, "Such a small child will only slow things down. They should wait until the end." "Exactly, just serve us first. It'll save time for the others." "You two." Upon hearing their shameless words, Jiang Saijin's face reddened with anger. She was about to step forward to deal with them when Jiang Peihuan's voice rang out, "Go to the back." Jiang Peihuan's eyes were dark and icy as she stared intently at the two men. Facing her intense gaze, the two men felt a shiver of fear. But recalling that she was just a young lady from a wealthy family, one of them tried to charm his way out. "Miss, we are genuinely hungry. We've been waiting for so long, so we thought to, Jiang Peihuan's patience snapped. She drew a whip from her waist, and with a swift move, wrapped it around one man's hand. With a tug, she threw him onto the snowy ground. The other man met a similar fate. They saw Jiang Peihuan's black whip coming straight at their faces. Before they could react, they felt a burning pain on their faces. "Throw these two people out. If they dare to shout, break their limbs." Without waiting for their response, Jiang Peihuan ordered her servants. "Yes, eldest Mississippi." Upon Jiang Peihuan's command, several servants came forward, dragging the two men away and quickly silencing them. Others had contemplated cutting in line, but after witnessing the scene, they silently returned to their place. "Here, your porridge. Hold it steady." Jiang Xijin then began distributing the porridge. On another line, Jiang Ruyun did the same. The queues were so long they seemed endless. "Set up another pot."
Yes.
"Elder sister?" Just as Jiang Peihuan was preparing another distribution line, she heard Jiang Songbei's voice. He was dressed in his academy uniform, with Ping'an closely following him. The two brothers of the Jiang family, Jiang Changbai and Jiang Songbai, learned martial arts and civil arts respectively. The followers of the two of them were brothers by blood. One of them was called Chang'an, and the other was called Ping'an, eldest sister. Seeing the young man rushing towards her, Jiang Peihuan's eyes softened with a gentle smile. "Did you just return home?" Third young master had just returned to the mansion. When he learned that you and the other mistresses were here distributing porridge, he came straight here. Ping'an quickly relayed. "You should go home and rest." Jiang Peihuan suggested to Jiang Songbai after hearing Ping'an's update. However, the young man shook his head. "Elder sister, I'm not tired. Let me help, okay?" Seeing Jiang Songbei's determination, Jiang Peihuan nodded in agreement. Chapter 230. Naturally, it will empty your private savings. Jiang Peihuan arranged Jiang Songbai in the third team. At this moment, Deputy General Liu also arrived. Behind him was a line of large carts, all filled with cotton-padded jackets. Seeing so many jackets, surprise filled Jiang Peihuan's eyes. "So many?" "Eldest miss, these were sent by young Master Liu. He said these jackets are a token of the Liu family's goodwill and hopes that you won't refuse." As he spoke, Deputy General Liu took out all the silver notes that Jiang Peihuan had given him. Accepting the silver notes from his hands, Jiang Peihuan nodded. "Let's start distributing these jackets. Everyone, as I said before, 1 jacket per person, but children and the elderly are the priority." Given the previous incidents, there was no dispute when people lined up for the jackets this time. The porridge was easy to distribute, 1 bowl per person. Although the jackets seemed plentiful, because they were bulky, more than half were quickly claimed. "Eldest miss, There are too many people, and there aren't enough jackets. You keep distributing. 111 find a way. Finishing her words, Zhang Peihuan looked towards the third team's location. Songbai, come here. Hearing Zhang Peihuan's voice, Zhang Songbai quickly handed his ladle to Pingyan and rushed to her side. Eldest sister, you called? I have a task for you. Eldest sister, please give me your orders. Go to cousin Liu's house and tell him one want to buy jackets. But we can't just accept them for free. Tell him that the ones he brought earlier already show his goodwill. It's difficult to buy so many jackets in such a short time. Ask cousin Liu for help, but you must give him silver. If he doesn't accept it, say we don't want the jackets. Don't worry, eldest sister. 111 make sure it's done. With a smile to Zhang Peihuan, Zhang Songbai immediately mounted his horse and left. Although Zhang Songbai was always at the academy, he had trained in martial arts for many years, so Zhang Peihuan wasn't worried about him being alone. However, not long after Zhang Songbai left, Zhang Peihuan heard the sound of galloping horses. Instinctively, she looked up. She immediately saw Xiao Nani on his horse, Zueya. Behind the man were neatly arranged soldiers. Each of them had a cart behind them, filled with food and jackets. Seeing the man approaching, a smile appeared in Zhang Peihuan's eyes. Why are you here? I heard from Yi Xiao that you started distributing porridge tonight. Naturally, I had to come. All these items are from my imperial brother's private treasury. Distribute them as you see fit. From the emperor's private treasury? These are his people. As the ruler of a kingdom, isn't this what he should do? Seeing the mini carts, Zhang Peihuan couldn't help but smirk. She strongly suspected that Xiao Nani had emptied Emperor Qiming's private treasury. Her guess was correct. Although a bit remained in Qiming Emperor's treasury, it was almost all gone. Wang Kuan looked at the emptied storage room and hurriedly ran to the Qinqing Palace. Your Majesty, there's a problem. What are you shouting for? Emperor Qiming was reviewing documents. Hearing Wang Kun's voice, he gave him a cold glance. Taking a deep breath, Wang Kuan spoke. Your Majesty, King Cheng, what did he do? He has emptied your private treasury. What do you mean by emptied? All the treasures that Prince Ha Chi had offered, along with the original items in your treasury, have all been taken by King Cheng. He didn't leave any behind? Emperor Qiming directly threw the brush in his hand onto the table and looked at Wang Kuan as he spoke with anger in his eyes. Hesitatingly, Wang Kuan replied, he did leave some, but only some damaged fabrics. Anything useful was taken. Is he trying to rebel? Go and tell him to get into the palace right now. Yes, Your Majesty. Seeing the enraged Emperor Qiming, Wang Kuan hurriedly left. At that moment, Xiao Nani was helping Zhang Peihuan distribute items. However, Han Feng soon rushed over. After paying his respects, Han Feng whispered, Master, the Emperor is furious. He's ordered you to come to the palace immediately. Oh. Upon hearing Han Feng's words, Xiao Nani nodded and then continued to distribute the jackets. Zhang Peihuan, who was nearby, looked at him and said, Why does the Emperor want to see you? Probably because one emptied his private treasury? You? Don't tell me that the Emperor didn't know when you moved the things? Yes. Seeing him nod, Zhang Peihuan didn't know what to say. Looking at him, she quickly asked, So, how will you handle it? However it needs to be handled. After all, the items have already been given away. Zhang Peihuan was speechless. More than an hour later, Xiao Nani slowly walked into the palace. As soon as he arrived at Qinqing Hall, a teacup was thrown directly at Xiao Nani. This time, Emperor Qiming was genuinely angry, aiming the cup directly at Xiao Nanye's shoulder. However, with a sidestep, Xiao Nani avoided it, and the teacup fell to the ground, shattering. Seeing this, both Emperor Qiming and Wang Kuan were stunned. A few seconds later, Emperor Qiming, filled with rage, yelled at Xiao Nani, You dare dodge. Tell me, where are the items from my private treasury? Return them. No items to return. But if you want my life, you can have it. You. Xiao Nani walked up to Emperor Qiming, sat on a chair beside him, and finally turned to Wang Kuan. Also, do you still have that Longjing tea I drank last time? Brew some for me. Your Highness, have you forgotten? All of that Longjing tea was given to you by the Emperor. Do you have any other teas? Brew some for me. Wang Kuan was truly amazed. Hearing Xiao Nanyes's words, he silently left the room. Emperor Qi Ming was so angry he couldn't speak. He just glared at Xiao Nani. Taking a teacup from Wang Kuan, Xiao Nani leisurely took a sip and then turned to Emperor Qi Ming. Imperial brother, have you ever experienced the sensation of going through winter with only a single layer of clothing? What do you mean by that? The capital city is now filled with beggars. What did you say? I've exchanged everything from your private treasury for food and clothing, and they've all been handed to those beggars. Emperor Qi Ming wasn't a fool. A fool couldn't be an emperor. After a moment, he understood Xiao Nanyes's intention. After a long while, he glared at Xiao Nanyi angrily. If you wanted to give alms, why didn't you use items from your own private treasury instead of emptying mine? Didn't one tell you my treasury is already empty? Moreover, those are your people. So naturally, we have to empty your private treasury. Chapter 231. Danger in the Residence. All these years, you've been siphoning from me. Why is your private treasury empty? Did Imperial brother forget? I'm already betrothed. Everything from my private treasury has naturally been given to my future wife. Look at you. Get out. Get out of my sight. By listening to Xiao Nanyes's excuse and his matter-of-fact demeanor, Emperor Qi Ming felt a deep disappointment and anger. He slowly drank the tea in his cup and rook his own sweet time to leave the Qinqing Palace. After Xiao Nani left, the anger in Emperor Qi Ming's eyes dissipated a little. Go and investigate the current situation in Jingdo for me, as well as how many things the local officials have hidden from me. Yes, Your Majesty. A man dressed in black suddenly appeared in the empty space in front of him. After bowing to Emperor Qi Ming, he left. Your Majesty, what about King Cheng's treasure? Wang Kuan spoke up once that man left. Let him be. Just assume they're all gone. Hearing Emperor Qi Ming's words, Wang Kuan spoke no more, knowing this would be the outcome. However, it seemed as if Emperor Qi Ming had thought of something. He looked at Wang Kuan and whispered, Summon the Empress. Yes. A cunning palace. Wang Kuan, why has His Majesty summoned me so late? Is there something urgent in the palace? Nevertheless, a gentle smile formed on the Empress' face. It's not exactly about the palace affairs. As they spoke, Wang Kuan whispered a few words into the Empress' ear. A moment later, the Empress arrived at the Palace of Heavenly Purity. The Palace of Heavenly Purity was the place where Emperor Qi Ming handled government affairs. Other than Emperor Qi Ming's orders, no one was allowed to enter. Upon entering the Qinqing Hall, the Empress bowed to Emperor Qi Ming. Greetings, Your Majesty. Rise. Upon hearing the Empress' voice, Emperor Qi Ming set down the brush in his hand and walked over to sit by the side, gesturing for her to sit next to him. Sit. One have something to discuss with you. What does Your Majesty wish to tell? Tonight, that boy Nani emptied my private treasury. Why? Did he cause any trouble? What trouble could he cause? He only did this to distribute porridge in the city. Empress, the snow this year is heavier and arrived earlier than usual. There are many beggars in the city, and probably even more outside. Emperor Qi Ming briefly described the situation in the city. I may not share the same hardships as the people. However, I also shouldn't be overly extravagant. Thus, I called you here to supervise the harem. From today on, reduce the expenses by 10% and strictly prohibit any extravagance. Don't worry, Your Majesty, one will definitely handle this matter well. By listening to Emperor Qi Ming, the Empress understood the dire situation of the common people. Hence, she promptly responded. Emperor Qi Ming nodded with satisfaction. One trust in your capabilities. The night deepened, but people from the city's general mansion continued to distribute porridge. Eldest sister, most of the porridge has been distributed. Leave the rest to me. You, second sister, and Si Jean should get some rest. Zhang Songbai, looking at the diminishing queue, addressing Jiang Peihuan. You've just returned from the academy. Let's head back to the mansion together after this. Hearing his words, Jiang Peihuan softly chuckled. Elder sister, I'm a man with a strong body. It's fine even if I stay up all night. In this freezing cold, your health is a concern. Return to the mansion first, all right? While speaking, Jiang Songbai adjusted and tightened the cloak around Jiang Peihuan. Seeing the young man before her, the look in Jiang Peihuan's eyes grew even softer. The young man looked naive, but his stature was already very upright. After some thought, Jiang Peihuan reached out and patted Jiang Songbei's shoulder to entrust the remaining work to him. Elder sister, rest assured, it's getting late. Let's go back first and come back tomorrow morning. She reached out to Jiang Ruyun and Jiang Xijin. Many mansions only served porridge at noon, but Jiang Peihuan always served porridge in the morning, noon, and evening. Therefore, she really needed to go back and have a good rest. Jiang Ruyun and Jiang Xijin were also tired. They directly boarded the carriage. Tomorrow morning, both of you don't need to come. Rest well and come over after lunch. Jiang Peihuan said softly. No, eldest sister, I want to be with you. Yes, elder sister, how can we let you work alone? They'll come with you. As soon as Jiang Peihuan finished speaking, Jiang Ruyun and Jiang Xijin immediately responded. Jiang Ruyun quickly added, elder sister, your health is weaker than ours. If you can come, there's no reason we can't. In that case, we'll come together tomorrow morning. Yes. Upon returning to the general's mansion, everyone went back to their respective courtyards. Eldest miss, the hot water is ready. After washing up, get some early rest. Yu'er placed the hot water on a nearby rack and gently spoke to Jiang Peihuan. Jiang Peihuan put down the medical book in her hand. You've been tired for a long time today. Go and rest early. We have to get up early tomorrow. Receive the cloth from Yu'er. Jiang Peihuan ordered her to go rest. Yes. After bowing to Jin Peihuan, Yu'er left. After a quick wash, Jiang Peihuan picked up the medical book again to read a few pages before setting it down. She pulled back the covers and lay down directly on the bed, then extinguished the lamp with a gust from her palm. Jiang Peihuan could not sleep well. She always felt as if something was staring at her. She suddenly heard the yelping of Xiaobai. Ever since Xiaonani had mentioned not to allow Xiaobai to sleep on the bed, Yu'er had made a separate nest for Xiaobai in Jiang Peihuan's room. Hearing Xiaobai's yelp, Jiang Peihuan immediately sat up. Chapter 232. Xiaobai Savior. Jiang Peihuan felt a freezing breath came from the above. She quickly turned sideways to avoid it. Jiang Peihuan rushed to lit up the lamp. Under the light source, she saw a snake as thick as her arm laid on her bed. The colorful snake was curled up on her bed. Just moments ago, this snake was right above her head. If she hadn't reacted quickly, she would have been bitten. Jiang Peihuan was not sure of the snake species, but she was certain not to risk herself. If it was highly venomous, one would surely die on the spot. As Jiang Peihuan looked at the snake also turned its gaze towards her. Suddenly, it sprang from the bed. Shocked, Jiang Peihuan swiftly dodged. She ran out of her room. The snake chased her, racing out into the courtyard. Jiang Peihuan gripped the long sword in her hand tightly to confront the snake. Considering it was winter, logically, there should not be any snakes. But the snake crawled up to Jiang Peihuan. It began to open its mouth, aiming to strike. Jiang Peihuan's reaction was swift, but the snake managed to wrap its tail around Jiang Peihuan's wrist as she evaded its bite. The cold, slimy sensation made Jiang Peihuan shiver involuntarily. She quickly used her free hand to grasp the snake's head. Jiang Peihuan yanked it forcefully and threw it to the ground. Yet, the large snake immediately lunged at Jiang Peihuan again, causing a flicker of panic in her eyes. Just as she was pondering what to do, Jiang Peihuan saw a white figure darting towards her, followed by the sound of a wolf's howl by her ear. Xiaobai was still just a wolf pup, similar to a puppy. When it howled, one could clearly distinguish that it was a wolf's cry. Xiaobai, come back. Jiang Peihuan could not bear the thought of it being bitten to death by the large snake. Xiao Bai opened his jaws, biting directly into the snake's belly. The snake, writhing in pain, wrapped around Xiao Bai's neck to fight back. Xiao Bai started to lose its strength against a full-grown snake. The snake further tightened its grip and prepared to bite Xiao Bai once there was an opportunity. Jiang Peihuan quickly rushed toward the snake with her long sword. The snake shook off Xiao Bai in pain. Jiang Peihuan catched Xiao Bai quickly. If it fell to the ground with its body condition now, it would be a fatal injury. Placing Xiao Bai on the ground, Jiang Peihuan whispered, "Xiao Bai, well done. Stay still." Jiang Peihuan raised her sword, aiming it directly at the snake. The most vulnerable part of a snake was 7 inches behind its head. When Jiang Peihuan's advanced forward, the snake neither dodged nor hid. It seems like a final round between them. The snake leaped powerfully once it noticed Jiang Peihuan was closed enough, its tail coiling around the wrist that held the sword. Now, she was certain. This snake had been trained well to carry out assassination. She quickly reached out with her left hand, grabbing the hairpin gifted by Xiaonani, concealed the dagger. Jiang Peihuan the snake's vulnerable spot with the dagger. The snake, writhing in agony, twisted even more violently. A sharp pain shot through Jiang Peihuan's wrist. With one hand bound and the other stabbing the snake, she couldn't dodge. The snake struggled to gather its last strength to bite her. Xiao Bai on the ground, upon seeing this scene, rushed forward for the rescue. Perhaps it was Xiao Bai's repeated provocations that angered the large snake. This time, with its last breath, the snake charged towards Xiao Bai as well. Xiao Bai. Anxiety filled Jiang Peihuan's eyes. Just as Jiang Peihuan was about to stab again, she saw a silhouette rushing towards them. "Huanair, stay still." It was Xiaonani. After Xiaonani came out of the palace, he went to the porridge distribution station only to find Jiang Songbai was there. He found out that Jiang Peihuan had already returned to the residence after asking Jiang Songbai. Xiaonani went back to the general's mansion directly. When he saw the scene in front of him, his eyes were filled with panic. Hearing Xiaonani's voice, Jiang Peihuan halted her actions. Xiaonani had already drawn his long sword. Leaping forward, with a swift stroke, he severed the snake's head. In the end, the snake managed to bite Xiao Bai. Luckily, the snake only managed to bite Xiao Bai's leg. Xiao Bai kept howling. Jiang Peihuan quickly approached and carried it in her arms. Xiao Bai stopped struggling with fear. The snake was still wriggling on the ground. Xiaonani stepped forward and quickly cut the snake into several pieces. After that only he walked to Jian Peihuan's side and examined Xiao Bai's injury with her. Although the snake's head had been chopped off, its teeth were still firmly biting onto Little White's leg. At this moment, Xiaonani was deeply grateful that he had brought Xiao Bai back from the West Mountain. "Eldest miss? How can this snake be so big?" When the people in the plum garden heard the commotion, they had already gotten up. Yu saw the snake that had been cut into several pieces in the courtyard, and her eyes were filled with shock. What happened to Xiao Bai? Yu saw Xiao Bai had being bitten by the snake's head. At this moment, Xiaonani grabbed Jian Peihuan's hand. "Let me do it. Go get some wine." Xiaonani whispered to Yu. "Yes." A while later, Yu ran all the way to Xiaonani's side with some wine. Xiaonani took the wine pot from Yu. Xiaonani poured the wine on Xiao Bai's injury spot. Soon, the snake's head loosened its teeth. However, Xiao Bai also fell to the ground and spat out white foam from the corner of its mouth. "Xiao Bai." Jiang Peihuan stepped forward and picked Xiao Bai up from the ground. Jian Peihuan's eyes were filled with worry as she looked at Xiao Bai. Initially, Jian Peihuan treated Xiao Bai as a pet. However, what happened tonight changed her view of Xiao Bai. Tonight, Xiao Bai no longer just a pet but a guardian to her. Chapter 233. Treating Xiao Bai. Han Feng, go get the veterinarian.
Yes.
Many concubines in the palace keep pets, so there is a dedicated veterinarian in the palace. Although Jiang Peihuan know about medicine, she had never learned to treat animals. Holding Xiaobai, she was uncertain how to detoxify it. She brought Xiaobai into the room and tried to feed the pill to Xiaobai, but Xiaobai was too weak to swallow it. Huan air, Xiaobai won't be able to swallow. As he spoke, Xiao Nani took the tea from the table and put the antidote pill to dissolve into liquid form. The pill dissolved quickly. Holding the cup, Xiao Nani said, "One will open Xiaobai's mouth. You pour the medicine in." "Okay." Seeing Jiang Peihuan nod, Xiao Nani held Xiaobai and forcefully opened its mouth. "Pour it in," he whispered. Jin Peihuan poured the medicine into Xiaobai's mouth. After pouring all the medicine, Xiao Nani held Xiaobai's mouth tightly to prevent it from spitting it out. At the same time, Xiaobai was too weak to break free at all. When Xiaobai calmed down, Xiao Nani reached out and patted its head. "Well done and rest well." Whether Xiaobai understood Xiao Nani's words or not, it fell asleep. "Hold it. I want to check its body." Jiang Peihuan was searching its body to ensure no other bite mark. At the same time, she noticed the bitten area was turning black, indicating a strong venom. It was obvious that it was poisonous. "Your Highness, the veterinarian is here." Han Feng's voice echoed from outside. Jiang Peihuan immediately opened the door. She saw the veterinarian, who seemed to have been rushed over by Han Feng. The veterinarian looked agitated, but upon seeing Xiao Nani, he greeted respectfully, "Your Highness." "Examine it first," Xiao Nani ordered, placing Xiaobai on a nearby table. The veterinarian glanced at Xiaobai and exclaimed, "Your Highness, is this a wolf cub?"
Yes.
The vet carefully began to examine Xiaobai. Jiang Peihuan observed his every move and asked several questions. Recognizing her status, the veterinarian answered patiently. After the examination, the veterinarian informed Jiang Peihuan, "Fortunately, eldest miss, you fed this wolf cub the detoxifying pill, so there is no poison in its body. But its leg? To heal the cub's leg, we must first let out all the poisoned blood." The veterinarian said softly at Jiang Peihuan and Xiao Nani, "Once the blood is drained, we'll apply medicine and let it recover. In about half a month, the wolf cub should be fine." "How do you drain the blood?" Jiang Peihuan asked softly after hearing the veterinarian's explanation. The veterinarian whispered, "Use a dagger to cut up the wounded area. Watch the blood flow out until it turns red." Chapter 234. Leave it to him to deal with. Jiang Peihuan truly wasn't sleepy at this moment. Xiao Nani did not respond verbally. Instead, he pulled out a bamboo flute from his robe. Jiang Peihuan looked on with a touch of surprise as Xiao Nani brought the flute. Shortly after, the melodic tones filled the room. Its sound was soothing and relaxing. She felt at ease. Sitting by Jiang Peihuan's bedside, Xiao Nani played the flute. His sight never took off from her. Whether it was because of Xiao Nani's presence or the calming tunes of the flute, Jiang Peihuan started feeling drowsy. Xiao Nani's tune became even more gentle. A few moments later, her breathing evened out in sleep. Xiao Nani stopped playing. After carefully tucking Jiang Peihuan in, Xiao Nani made his way out of the room.
Guard her closely. Yes.
Yishao was standing outside the door. She promptly bowed in acknowledgement. Subsequently, Xiao Nani left the general's mansion. By early dawn, Han Feng returned to Cheng Mansion. Approaching Xiao Nani's study, he noticed the candlelight still flickering inside. Han Feng gently knocked on the door. "Master."
Come in.
Hearing the voice from inside, Han Feng opened the door. After taking 2 steps forward and bowing to Xiao Nani, Han Feng spoke softly, "Master, I have found out that the snake is Princess Zhuoma's pet." "Where is she?" "At the post station. Take the mansion guards and surround the post station."
Yes.
Post station. An hour later, Xiao Nani, dressed in black, walked into the post station. The whole place was brightly lit. Hachi greeted him as he came out. After bowing to Xiao Nani, Hachi asked softly, "Your Highness, may I ask the reason for your visit at this late hour?" In these few days, Hachi had come to understand the intricate relationships among the city's influential figures. Thus, he was acutely aware of the immense power and influence wielded by the figure now standing before him, King Cheng. I came here late at night not to seek you but to find Princess Zhuoma. Zhuoma? Has Zhuoma offended you in some way? Thinking back to the hurried manner in which Zhuoma had recently left the post station, Hachi couldn't help but frown. He truly regretted it now. If he had known earlier that Zhuoma would be so restless, he wouldn't have brought her from the grasslands, despite her beauty. First Prince, are you aware that Princess Zhuoma attempted to harm my future queen by using a snake? Han Feng, who stood beside Xiao Nani, directly addressed Ha Chi upon hearing his words. Hearing this, Ha Kai's expression fluctuated. The eldest miss of the general's mansion. The influence and stature of the general's mansion in the capital was not to be underestimated. This was the information Ha Chi had gathered over the past few days. King Cheng, could there be some misunderstanding regarding this matter? Han Feng, bring the thing over.
Yes.
Shortly after, Han Feng approached Ha Chi with a box. He directly opened it. A strong, pungent odor of blood emanated from the box. Inside lay a snake, chopped into several sections. Ha Kai's complexion shifted, and his already troubled expression became even graver. It seems you recognizes this snake. Noticing the recognition in his eyes, Xiao Nani chuckled. Ha Chi nodded in acknowledgement. This colorful snake was unique to their grassland tribes, and he couldn't deny it. Where is Princess Zhuoma?
She has entered the palace.
Thank you for informing, First Prince. With that, Xiao Nani turned and left directly. Watching Xiao Nani's departing figure, Ha Chi hurriedly caught up. King Cheng, this matter concerns my grassland tribe. One will accompany you. Saying so, Ha Chi mounted his horse. Sitting atop his steed, Zhui Yun, Xiao Nani seemed lost in thought, then suddenly instructed Han Feng beside him, go to the general's mansion and ask Zhang Peihuan to come to the palace.
Yes.
Han Feng raised his whip. At this time, Zhang Peihuan had already gotten up. She was about to go to the city as she walked into the courtyard. She saw Han Feng descending from the sky. Xiao Nani loves to climb over the wall to visit her every day instead of walking through the front gate. Like his master, Han Feng shared the same habit. Eldest miss? Han Feng walked up to Zhang Peihuan and bowed respectfully. Waving her hand dismissively, Zhang Peihuan softly asked, why have you come? Eldest miss, the master has identified the owner of the snake. He has requested you to visit the palace. Whose snake is it? Princess Zhuoma. Upon hearing this, Zhang Peihuan wasn't surprised at all. Such a venomous snake could only come from the grassland tribes. Elder sister? Eldest sister? Zhang Xijin and Zhang Ruyun entered the plum garden. Seeing the two of them, Zhang Peihuan said softly, I have something to deal with. You guys go to the city first.
Yes.
Elder sister, do you have something to deal with? Do you need my help? It's just a small matter. Zhang Peihuan didn't want to share the events of the previous night with the household to avoid unnecessary worry. After sending Zhang Xijin and Zhang Ruyun on their way, Zhang Peihuan followed Han Feng to the palace. Upon reaching the palace gates, Zhang Peihuan noticed Xiao Nani waiting. The man was draped in the white cloak that she had tailored for him. Hearing her approach, he turned to face her. Huan air. A hint of warmth flashed in Xiao Nani's eyes. Inside the palace, horses were prohibited. As Zhang Peihuan prepared to dismount, she noticed Xiao Nani extending a hand to assist her. Placing her hand in his, she gracefully alighted from her horse. Let's go in. You don't have to worry about this matter. Leave it to me. Without the emperor's decree, no one was allowed to enter the palace, but no one dared to stop them. Once inside the palace, Xiao Nani turned to Zhang Peihuan. With his words, she nodded. Initially, Zhang Peihuan had intended to resolve this matter privately. However, now that Xiao Nani had escalated the situation, she will go with the flow. In the Qinqing Palace, Emperor Qi Ming had just risen when he heard Wang Kun's report. Of all the names mentioned, he only caught on to Xiao Nani's. What's that fellow doing here so early in the morning? He whispered. I am not sure. But the eldest miss from the Zhang family, as well as Prince Hachi and Princess Shuama, have also arrived too. Chapter 235. She's so weak Emperor Qi Ming has no choice. Let them in. A moment later, the four of them walked into Qinqing Palace. Your Majesty, the Qing King, General Lin, the Great General, and all the ministers have arrived. As soon as Xiao Nani and Jiang Pei Huan entered Qinqing Palace, Wang Kuan walked up to Emperor Qi Ming and said, "What are they trying to do? Let them in." "Forget it. Let's go to Chongming Palace." Qinqing Hall was where Emperor Qi Ming handled official matters. Although it was not small, it was not very big either. In contrast, the Chongming Hall next to it was much more expansive. By the time Emperor Qi Ming arrived, the Chongming Hall was already filled with people. "Haonair, are you all right?" Upon spotting Jiang Peihuan standing beside Xiao Nani, Jiang Hong hastened forward. Seeing the worry in Jiang Hong's eyes, Jiang Peihuan smiled. "Father, rest assured I'm fine." Relief washed over Jiang Hong as he glimpsed her smile. Turning to Xiao Nani, his eyes reflected gratitude and approval. "King Cheng, thank you for what you did last night. Great General, you were too polite. It was what I should have done." Jiang Hong's expression softened further at Xiao Nani's response. Upon setting his eyes on Princess Shuama, did they really think the Jiang family was defenseless? A princess from a minor tribe dared to harm his beloved Huan heir? At this moment, Shuama did not notice Jiang Hong's gaze. She stared at Jiang Peihuan. When she saw Jiang Peihuan standing very much alive before her, Shuama hadn't expected someone to survive the bite of her colorful snake. When she turned around, she met Xiao Nani's cold, menacing gaze. His eyes didn't seem to be looking at a living person, but rather a corpse. Xiao Nani was filled with regret. He shouldn't have come directly to the palace. Instead, he should have ended this woman's life outside. Perhaps sensing the killing intention from Xiao Nani, Jiang Peihuan gently tugged at his sleeve. Seeing the expression in Jiang Peihuan's eyes, the man's face softened slightly. "What are you all trying to do?" At this moment, Emperor Qi Ming also walked over. As he spoke, Emperor Qi's gaze fell on Xiao Nani. "Imperial brother, Princess Shuama attempted kill my future queen with her snake. What should be her punishment?" "You're saying Princess Shuama tried to have Jiang Peihuan dead by a snake?" Emperor Qi Ming, now familiar with Jiang Peihuan's name, instinctively turned to Shuama. "Princess Shuama, is this true?" Responding to Emperor Qi Ming, Shuama began, "It's a misunderstanding. I didn't dash." She was cut off as a wooden box was thrown towards her. Instinctively dodging, the box hit the ground, releasing the dead snake inside. Many had gathered in Chongming Hall, and upon witnessing this, their expressions varied. "This is the snake that the first prince mentioned from the grassland tribes. Princess Shuama, do you have anything to say?" "Your Highness, this snake is from the grasslands. Why can you be so sure that it belongs to me?" "Ha!" Though his face held a smile, his eyes were void of amusement, filled instead with a chilling intensity. Without uttering a word, he clapped his hands softly. Han Feng entered the hall, leading a maid. It was Zhuo Ma's personal maid. Zhuo Ma looked anxious when she saw her maid. She looked at Xiao Nani and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, why did you capture my maid?" "What I detained was not just any maid, but the one who released the snake into the general's mansion," he replied coldly. "Your Highness King Cheng, don't be ridiculous. When did I release a snake into the general's mansion?" Azu retorted quietly. Xiao Nani, seemingly unfazed, shifted his gaze back to Emperor Qi Ming. "Imperial brother, I came today to request a decree."
Speak.
"If I can prove that this snake was indeed released by Princess Shuama and her maid into the general's mansion, please grant me permission to execute both the princess and the maid." This? While Emperor Qi Ming could disregard the execution of the maid, he seemed conflicted about executing Princess Shuama. However, Emperor Qi Ming has always acceded to Xiao Nani's requests. So, Emperor Qi Ming directly addressed Jiang Peihuan. "Miss Jiang, you are the victim. What do you have to say about this matter? Huan Er is just a young maiden. She's delicate and must have been scared out of her wits. Why question her? Since she's to be my wife, I could decide on her matters. Before Jiang Peihuan could even speak, Xiao Nani spoke up. Hearing Xiao Nani describe her as delicate, both Emperor Qiming and Jiang Hong twitched their lips. Perhaps Imperial Uncle is misunderstanding the meaning of delicate? This was uttered by Xiao Juanhao. In Xiao Junhao's memory, Jiang Peihuan was always fierce as a tigress. Now, seeing her standing so obediently by Xiao Nanya's side, Xiao Juanhao felt nothing but jealousy. He voiced out after listening to Xiao Nanya's comment. Silence. When I'm speaking with the Emperor, where do you get the right to interrupt? Xiao Nani glared coldly at Xiao Juanhao and scolded him. Xiao Juanhao was speechless right away. Your Highness, Miss Jiang hasn't been hurt at all. Why are you so aggressive? Wouldn't this make... Ah! Before Lin Rahai could finish his words, a pain came from his abdomen. Xiao Nani performed a flying kick on Lin Rahai and sent him flying and sliding for another 2 meters even when he hit the ground. Your Highness, how dare you be so impudent in front of His Majesty? Lin Rahai stood up and looked at Xiao Nani coldly. In this case, one didn't manage to kill you, so why should Lord Lin bother about it? Xiao Nanya's action indicated the same thing happened on his Huan Er. Even she was safe now, but the intention was unforgivable. The few ministers who were about to speak silently shut their mouths. At this moment, Jiang Hong suddenly knelt in front of Emperor Qiming. Jiang Hong, what are you trying to do? Emperor Qiming only felt a headache when Jiang Hong kneeling in front of him. Your Majesty, my daughter has met with such a calamity without any reason. I beseech you to seek justice on her behalf. Nanyi, didn't you say you had a way to prove that the snake was released by Princess Shuoma? How do you plan to prove it? Emperor Qiming did not ultimately respond to Xiao Nanya's conditions, but Xiao Nani did not persist either. With Emperor Qiming's words, Xiao Nani suddenly flew towards Princess Shuoma. You! Chapter 236. How do you know I've let her off before Zhuoma could react? Xiao Nani took the snake flute from her sleeve. Zhuoma was panicked once the snake flute fall into Xiao Nanya's hand. King Cheng, is this the proof you were talking about? Prince Hachi, you're a wise man. Now, why don't you tell my imperial brother what is this? Xiao Nani didn't look at Zhuoma but turned his attention to Hachi. Hakai's expression was upset about it. He stepped forward and after bowing to Emperor Qiming, he announced, Your Majesty, this is indeed the snake flute. One apologize for the lapse in my guidance. Brother, what are you saying? Zhuoma couldn't believe that her brother would admit it so directly. Her eyes were filled with anger. Hachi went forward and slapped Zhuoma's face. With the warning given by Hachi, Zhuoma bit her lips tightly. Princess Zhuoma, do you have anything else to say? At this moment, Emperor Qiming questioned her. Ploko fnerkriva imin vnr maok I inked wanted tien law I inlroen and the oldoct mice, please forgive me, your majesty. I just wanted to play a joke on the eldest miss of the Jiang family. Nonsense. Hearing her reason, Emperor Qiming's eyes revealed some anger. However, he couldn't just let Xiao Nani kill Zhuoma. So, Qiming insisted alternative way by asking Jiang Peihuan again. Miss Jiang, how would you like to handle this matter? This has nothing to do with the princess. One was the one who released the snake. Zhuoma's maid, Azu confessed her sin. Xiao Nanya's expression turned cold upon hearing this. Just a moment ago, you said it wasn't you. Just as she was about to speak again, she felt a sharp pain on her neck. Xiao Nani had cut Azu's neck, leaving a bloody mark. She collapsed to the ground immediately. Azhu? Zhuoma's eyes were filled with terror as she watched her maid, Azu, being killed on the spot. Instinctively, she looked towards Xiao Nani, only to see him approaching her step by step. Xiao Nani, stop right there. The seated Emperor Qiming, witnessing this scene, urgently spoke out. Jiang Peihuan, I'm asking you, how do you want to handle this? Zhang Peihuan also understood Emperor Qiming's thoughts. He was unwilling to kill Princess Shuama. Emperor, since Princess Shuama said that this was just a joke, then let's end this matter here. Huan heir. Xiao Nani subconsciously frowned. Emperor Qiming said with a smile, "You are truly magnanimous. Princess Shuama, even if this was just a joke, you need to apologize to Miss Jiang." A smile appeared on Emperor Qiming's face. With Zhang Peihuan suggesting to let it go, her life was spared. With the command of Emperor Qiming, she walked up to Zhang Peihuan and said, "Miss Jiang, I truly apologize. It's all right." As she spoke, Jin Peihuan smiled and helped Zhuoma up. After a cup of tea, Jin Peihuan left the palace with Xiao Nani and Jiang Hong. "Great General, if you have something to do, go ahead. One will send Huan heir back to the mansion in a while." Seeing that Zhuoma wasn't injured at all, Jiang Hong's eyes were filled with unwillingness. He had rushed back from the military camp. "Thank you, Your Highness," he nodded. Jiang Hong rode away on his horse. After Jiang Hong left, Xiao Nani immediately looked at Zhang Peihuan and said, "Why did you let that woman go? How do you know I spared her?" As she spoke, a faint smile appeared in Zhang Peihuan's eyes. Seeing the smile in her eyes, Xiao Nani's eyes revealed some doubt. At this moment, an ear-piercing scream came from behind. Xiao Nani turned around. He realized that Zhuoma kept scratching her body and face. No matter how much Hachi tried to stop her, it was futile. Hachi finally had no choice but to knock Zhuoma out. It was only then that Zhuoma stopped scratching herself. As Zhuoma passed by Zhang Peihuan, she noticed the blood marks on Zhuoma's face. Watching Zhuoma's condition, Xiao Nani knew about her strategy. "Let's go, Huan heir. 111, send you back to the mansion." "Let's not go back to the mansion first. Let's go to the place where the porridge is distributed in the city." "All right." The two headed towards the place where porridge was being given out in the city. When Xiao Nani and Zhang Peihuan arrived, the line was exceptionally long. She realized that most of these faces were unfamiliar, meaning these beggars were not the same ones from last night. "Eldest sister, you're here." Upon seeing Zhang Peihuan, both Zhang Songbai and Zhang Sijin were elated. Zhang Peihuan turned to Deputy General Liu and said, "There are too many people. Open 2 more pots." "Yes, eldest Mississippi. What are you all standing around for? Hurry up and help." At this moment, Han Feng directed the soldiers beside him. The soldiers quickly rushed to help with the tasks. Xiao Nani turned around and saw Han Feng standing there. He looked at him and said, "What are you still standing here for? I'll go help too." Han Feng ran over to help too. "Xiao Nani, why don't you return to the mansion first? There are too many people. I'll stay and help you." Before Zhang Peihuan could refuse, she noticed that he had already started giving out orders. Despite the large crowd, Xiao Nani effortlessly gave his instructions. Zhang Peihuan would have been overwhelmed alone, but with Xiao Nani's assistance, things felt much more manageable. A cry reached Zhang Peihuan's, "Grandpa, wake up, we have food. Please, wake up." Zhang Peihuan saw 2 children, desperately shaking an old man on the ground. The children looked about 4 or 5 years old. Sorrow flashed in Zhang Peihuan's eyes. She approached them and checked the old man's pulse. The 2 children were initially crying, but they paused momentarily upon seeing Zhang Peihuan. They asked for help repeatedly. "Sister, please save our grandpa." "Deputy General Liu? Eldest miss? Find a place to give these 2 children some food and clothes." "Sister, we don't want food or clothes. We just want you to save my grandfather." As she spoke, the 2 children wanted to kneel down again, but Zhang Peihuan held them up. Chapter 237. Xiao Nani makes his move. Help yourself to get something to eat first. 111. Treat your grandfather right away. Only after you've eaten, you have the strength to take care for him, understand? The 2 children agreed to eat, taking the porridge offered to them by those nearby. After settling the old man on somewhere much proper, Zhang Peihuan took her time to diagnose him properly. Yishao, go to the pharmacy and fetch some medicine for cold symptoms.
Yes.
After Yishao left, Xiaonani approached Zhang Peihuan. Did this old man catch a cold? Looking at the old man in front of him, Xiaonani guessed his sickness too. He had overheard Zhang Peihuan's conversation with Yishao. It's not just cold. His body has severe deficiencies. Such deficiencies were the result of prolonged neglect and couldn't be fully cured. Zhang Peihuan returned to the porridge distribution line once she did her best to treat the old man. Despite being in snowy weather, the two young children smiled warmly, staying by the side of their unconscious grandfather. Witnessing this, Zhang Peihuan felt a whirlwind of emotions. With her limited power, she couldn't change much. The best she could offer was a bowl of porridge. Master, something happened outside the city. Han Feng suddenly rushed to Xiaonanya's side. Seeing Han Feng in such a nervous state now made her gaze shift towards him and Xiaonani. What happened? Many refugees have heard about the porridge distribution inside the city and headed here. The city guards are strictly guarding the gates and have already killed numerous refugees. Xiaonani. His eyes were filled with unsightly expressions. Huanair, you stay here and take care of the rest. They'll make a trip. Are you going to the city gate? Zhang Peihuan said directly. 111 go with you. All right. Although Xiaonani wasn't sure why Zhang Peihuan wanted to come, he wouldn't deny her request. The two rode their horses towards the city gate. Zhang Peihuan had anticipated the severity of the scene at the city gate. Still, it was an awful sight no matter how many times. The capital had 4 gates. Massive crowds of refugees blocked all 4 entrances, east, west, south, and north. Zhang Peihuan and Xiaonani arrived at the eastern gate, the main entrance. Dozens of bodies already lay near the city gate. The soldiers guarding the door were still attacking the refugee to chase them off.
Stop!
Xiaonani shouted. Before his command, the soldiers had already released their arrows. Without hesitation, Xiaonani deflecting all the arrow with his folding fan. Greetings, King Cheng. Upon seeing the sudden appearance of Xiaonani, the city guards and officers promptly saluted him. Who gave you the audacity to shoot at the civilians? A complex expression appeared on the officer's face. Your Highness, these rebels wanted to force their way into the city. It could seriously jeopardize the security of the city. One had no choice but to. You are a city's defense officer, and yet so incompetent. Perhaps I should just end you. Xiaonani had already drawn his sword. Mercy, King Cheng. I was only following orders. The officer quickly knelt down. Whose orders? This? Xiaonani thrusted him slightly as a last warning. Yes, it's General Lin. Open the city gates. Your Highness, you can't. If we open the city gates, won't we let? Oh, before he could finish his words, he was knocked out by Xiaonani. Han Feng, who was observing the scene, scoffed. Idiot, daring to be so obstructive in front of his master. The refugees at the gate instinctively wanted to rush in. Xiaonani rode his horse, Zhue Yun, out of the gate. Zhang Peihuan, who had been silent, followed closely behind Xiaonani. Once outside the city, Xiaonani, still mounted on his horse, addressed the refugees. What do you all intend to do? Are you planning a rebellion? Upon hearing the word rebellion, all the refugees immediately knelt on the ground. Your Highness, we don't intend to rebel. We just want a chance to survive. The snow this year was too heavy. Our crops have failed, yielding almost nothing. People in our village have already died from starvation. We don't want to perish from hunger. We heard that there was a porridge distribution in the city, so we came here. We just want to enter the city for a bowl of porridge. Yes, we just want to survive. By the end, cries erupted among the refugees. Han Feng, go to the mansion and arrange for people to set up a porridge stall at the east gate. All the soldiers here must lend their hand as well.
Yes.
Han Feng replied. Master, we don't know how to handle these matters. The gate soldiers claimed that was not their duty. Sending them to fight in wars, that's familiar. But buying grain and distributing porridge? They've never done that before. If you can't do this or that, what use are you to me? Han Feng was speechless as well. Xiao Nani, do you plan to distribute porridge at the city gate under your name? Zhang Peihuan curiously asked. Yes, I am, Xiao Nani nodded. Don't worry, leave this matter to me, Zhang Peihuan said softly. Go to the mansion and mobilize the people. Everyone will listen to Huan Heir's arrangements. If anyone disobeys orders, they will be punished by military law. Yes, master. Han Feng bowed and prepared to leave. Wait a minute. Zhang Peihuan called Han Feng back. Han Feng immediately pulled over and returned to her. Eldest miss, do you have another order? There isn't much food left in the city. You can look for the young master of the Liu family. Tell him that I need him for help. Roger that. Many merchants began to stock up their grain in order to raise the price later. As the number one merchant, the Liu family would definitely has the most volume. With current situation, it was not a wise move for the merchants to raise the price. Chapter 238. Raising the grain price. Although the city gate was open, due to Xiao Nanya's presence at the entrance, the refugees didn't dare to step forward. They had also heard what Xiao Nani just said. With both of their promise to distribute food here, the refugees were filled with hope now. The people Chang Mansion arrived very quickly. Zhang Peihuan heard the rhythmic sound of hoofbeats. Han Feng has led the group here. Behind him was a line of carts, all laden with grain. Zhang Peihuan stepped forward, directing the King Chang Mansion's people to unload the grain and set up the cooking pots. The grain was quickly cooked, and everything was ready within a quarter of an hour. Looking at the vast crowd, Zhang Peihuan frowned. Eldest miss, do you have any other instructions? Han Feng, who had been by Jiang Peihuan's side, immediately approached her upon seeing her concerned expression. Have them line up. The elder and children first, then the women.
Yes.
Han Feng tried to organize the refugees into lines, but they were unfamiliar with such order. There was troublemaker disobey Jiang Peihuan's instructed. Without negotiation, Han Feng taught him a lesson. With the scenario, everyone started to queue up properly. The queues for each line were so long they seemed endless even with 5 large pots ready. More and more people kept arriving from other gates. Huan Heir. Zhang Peihuan searched around once she heard the voice was calling her. Zhang Changbai has returned from the military camp. Beside him were Xue Qi and Xue Ji. Elder brother, cousin Qi, cousin Ji. Upon seeing the three of them, Zhang Peihuan stepped forward and bowed. Huan Heir, ain't the food station was inside the city? Why are you doing here? As he spoke, Zhang Changbai looked around. Zhang Shangbai's eyes were filled with worry. Elder brother, if there's nothing else, you can stay and help. After Zhang Peihuan briefly explained the matter, she looked at Zhang Changbai and said, All right, they'll help too. Huan Heir, we can help too. Xue Qi and Xue Ji, who were at the side, also agreed to help. With their help, 3 more big pots were added. The entire entrance to the city was filled with the aroma of porridge. The refugees who received their porridge had tears in their eyes. Eldest miss, if this continues, we'll run out of grain. Han Feng approached Zhang Peihuan and whispered. Even though they had bought a lot of grain from the Liu family's shop, it wasn't enough for every tummy to fill up. Eldest miss, should one return to the Liu family's shop to buy more grain? We can't rely on the Liu family for now. Zhang Peihuan had already taken a large amount of food and cotton clothes from the Liu family. If she took more, even the Liu family would not be able to bear it. Have you gone to other shops to check on the situation? Zhang Peihuan said softly. Yes, but the other merchants are offering extremely high prices. Only the Liu family shops are selling at usual price. Liu family's shop was running out of stock soon. After a moment of silence, Zhang Peihuan looked at Han Feng and said, Let's go to the city to buy food. Yes, miss. You stay here and guard. I will take Han Feng to the city to buy food. Zhang Peihuan needed Xiao Nani to keep things in order. All right, do you have enough money? Xiao Nani asked Zhang Peihuan before she took her leave. Don't worry, there's still quite a lot of money you gave me earlier. After saying that, Jiang Peihuan rode her horse towards the city. Once in the city, she first checked on the porridge distribution situation at the general's mansion. Jiang Peihuan, accompanied by Han Feng, proceeded to the city's grain shop. Eldest miss, are you here to buy grain? When the shopkeeper saw Jiang Peihuan enter, his eyes were full of smiles. He was well aware of the general's mansion's porridge distribution in the city. The more porridge distributed, the more grain she would need, which meant more profits for them. Yes, I'm here for the grain. Jiang Peihuan nodded with a smile. Shopkeeper, what's the price for this grain? Eldest miss, this grain has better quality. Therefore, the price is a bit higher compared to regular grain, 200 won per jin. 200 won? Jiang Peihuan's eyes were filled with unsightly expressions. In the past, a jin of grain was only 50 copper coins, and it shared the same quality. Eldest miss, you knows that rice are rare now, so perhaps the shopkeeper also realized the expression of Jiang Peihuan. So you merchants can capitalize on the situation, profiting from the nation's crisis? Jiang Peihuan interrupted him before he could finish. Upon hearing her words, the shopkeeper started to panic. Eldest miss, why say such things? Every shop in the capital is raising prices. The Liu family's shop hasn't. Han Feng, who was beside Jiang Peihuan, remarked coldly. They are simply naive. Although the shopkeeper's muttering voice was very soft, Jiang Peihuan and Han Feng were both martial arts practitioners and had excellent hearing, so they could still hear it clearly. Jiang Peihuan's eyes revealed a bit of gloominess. Initially, she planned to negotiate reasonably, but now it seemed futile. Let me be direct. The grain we buy today is for Qingcheng. There are hundreds of thousands of refugees there. Do you still want to charge 200 won today? This, eldest miss, please don't make things difficult for me. So, you are sticking to that price? Jiang Peihuan's smile remained, but her eyes had given the shopkeeper a warning signal. Eldest miss, why bother talking so much to him? If our master were here, he would probably be dead by now. He only dragging this out because you are too kind. He'll only ask you once. Are you going to lower the price of grain or not? Han Feng pulled out his sword and pointed it at the shopkeeper's neck. What do you want? You. Ah. Before the shopkeeper could finish his words, Han Feng's sword had already cut his arm. Are you going to lower the price or not? Han Feng's sword was aimed at the shopkeeper's other hand. One don't have the final say. This shop isn't mine. I'm just following orders. Then can you tell me, whose shop is this? It belongs to the Lin family. Chapter 239. Buying grain. Jiang Peihuan couldn't help but frown. It was Lin family's act again. Han Feng, load all the grains in the store. At your service. Han Feng acted once he heard Jiang Peihuan's order. The shopkeeper walked to Jiang Peihuan's side and said with pleading eyes, Miss Jiang, you can't take like this one. I will pay according to the market price. You may report it to the Lin family. Just say that one bought all. Jiang Peihuan left the shop directly after Han Feng, and the other servants moved all the available grains in the shop. The Liu family was the first family aware about Jiang Peihuan's movement. Miss Jiang? When Jiang Peihuan on her way back, she saw Liu Hao coming over. Cousin from the Liu family, thank you so much for your help this time. Jiang Peihuan was genuinely grateful when she met Liu Hao for all the contribution by the Liu family. It's just a minor effort on our part, Liu Hao quickly replied. Miss Jiang, did you bought these grains from the Lin family shop? Their grain is quite expensive now. If you need grains, I can have some sent to you. Cousin Liu, thank you for your kindness, but I can't keep taking grains from the Liu family. Once or twice is fine, but I can't always bother you. Besides, The grains behind me were purchased at the regular price. Regular price? Lu Hao was confused. Young Master Lu, these grains are bought by our Cheng Mansion's mistress. Who would dare to raise the price? Han Feng reported proudly to Lu Hao. I see. Cousin Lu, I need to get these grains to the city gate quickly, so we'll take my leave now. Have a safe journey, Miss Jiang. Lu Hao immediately stepped aside. Jiang Peihuan rode Lai Feng along with Han Feng and their servants to the city gate. Quickly, prepare the carriage. One need to go to the Lin Mansion. Once Jiang Peihuan and Han Feng left, the shopkeeper immediately rushed to the Lin family. Lin Mansion. At Lin Rahai's study hall. How preposterous. What right does she have? She has crossed the line too far. Lin Rahai's eyes were filled with fury after learned about the event. The shopkeeper at the side trembled in fear and did not dare to say a word. Father, this can be considered a good thing. Let's just ignore it. Lin Mengyao saw the anger in Lin Rahai's eyes and gently advised him. Ever since Lin Mengyao became Xiao Junhao's side consort, and he was no longer the favorite servant of Emperor Qiming, Lin Rahai's attitude towards Lin Mengyao had changed. This incident has caused our family financial loss. How can we just let it go? Father, the grain was taken away on the orders of King Cheng. If the emperor heard about the raised price of food without his command, he might. We aren't the only ones doing this. You don't have to say any more. I want to see what the people from Cheng Mansion has to do about our loss. Watching his retreating figure, Lin Mingio's expression turned gloomy. At the city gates, when Jiang Peihuan arrived, the previous grain supplies were almost depleted. With new supply of the grain on the carts behind Jiang Peihuan, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Eldest miss, someone seems to be approaching. Due to the carts she was escorting, Jiang Peihuan moved slower. Just as she had the grains unloaded, she heard Han Feng's voice. It was none other than Lin Rahai. Lin Rahai dismounted his horse. Lin Rahai's was here for his grain. Miss Jiang, isn't it inappropriate for you to threaten my staffs and took away my product from my shop by force? Lord Lin must be joking. I paid for them. With the usual market price, you mean? Miss Jiang, don't you know the price now? Do you know the difference between trading and robbing like a bandit? Bandit? Is Lord Lin accusing me of robbing you? Before Jiang Peihuan could speak, a low voice came from behind her. Xiao Nani walked over when heard Jiang Peihuan's and Lin Rahai's voice. Xue Qi and Xue Ji wanted to come over. However, they were stopped by Jiang Changbai. Don't worry, let His Highness handle it. Xiao Nani walked to Jin Peihuan's side and looked at Lin Rahai coldly. What is Lord Lin doing here? Greetings, King Cheng. Facing Xiao Nani, Lin Rahai has to pay his respect. Your Highness, while distributing porridge as a charitable act, using my family's grain for it without paying the actual amount is akin to robbery. 111 have to appeal to the Emperor. Robbery? So it's okay for Mr. Lin to exploit others, but not the other way around? 5. Jiang Peihuan spoke out. What do you mean by that, Miss Jiang? Xiao Nani wanted to intervene but was held back by Jiang Peihuan's gesture. Xiao Nani remained silent, though his gaze toward Lin Rahai was cold. Mr. Lin, do you remember how you earned your official title? Do you remember your Lin Xingqian? With every word from Jiang Peihuan, Lin Rahai's anger was raising. You. Chapter 240. The confrontation in the Qinqing Palace. Lin Rahai wanted to say something, but he could not say a word. He stared intently at Jiang Peihuan. How did you know? General Lin, it was extremely hard to keep any secret. There are few secrets in this world that remain unknown. Han Feng, call Lin Xingqian over.
Yes.
Xiao Nani looked at Lin Rahai. Didn't Lord Lin want to seek judgment from the Emperor? Let's go now. Huan Air, I'll leave you in charge of here. Xiao Nani looked at Jin Peihuan and said softly, if everything was entangled, Emperor Qi Ming would have other thoughts. So she decided to not involve in this matter. She nodded and let her man sort it out. Then, Xiao Nani rode on Jue Yun and headed towards the palace. In the Imperial Palace. At Qinqing Palace. Your Majesty, His Highness King Cheng is here. Wang Kuan made his report to Emperor Qi Ming upon hearing Wang Kun's words. Emperor Qi Ming put down the pen in his hand and asked, why is he here again? What has he come for this time? He seems to have some pressing matters to discuss, involving both your Majesty and Lord Lin. Hearing this, a hint of curiosity appeared in Emperor Qi Ming's eyes. Lord Lin? All right, let them in. Yes, your Majesty. Wang Kuan went to the palace entrance and addressed Xiao Nani. Your Highness, the Emperor invites you in. Okay. Xiao Nani stepped into the Qinqing Palace. Lin Rahai had long forgotten the matter about the grain. At this moment, his full attention was on Lin Xingchen beside him. Lin Xingchen exuded a cold aura, following Xiao Nani, and then paid his respects. Greetings, your Majesty. What is this about? Emperor Qi Ming spoke calmly. However, his gaze landed squarely on Xiao Nani. Your Majesty, one beg for your intervention. Lin Rahai recalled the main reason for his visit. Kneeling on the ground, he repeatedly begging and lamenting about Jiang Peihuan's wrongdoings. Are you implying Jiang Peihuan stole the grain from your store to distribute porridge? Yes, I beseech your Majesty to act justly. Imperial brother, that grain has nothing to do with Huan Air. It was my decision, moreover. One paid for them. Xiao Nani mentioned about the payment. Your Majesty, what King Cheng paid is far below from the market price. Lord Lin, do you have the audacity to speak of your profiteering during a national crisis in front of my imperial brother? What is going on here? Hearing the voices of the two, Emperor Qi Ming frowned. Lin Rahai, who was beside him, was about to speak subconsciously, but before he could, Emperor Qi Ming said directly, shut up. After saying that, Emperor Qi Ming looked at Xiao Nani and said, tell me what happened. Imperial brother, there are tens of thousands of refugees outside the city now. Many families in the city have started to give out porridge, but some unscrupulous shops have taken the opportunity to raise the price. Lord Lin is one of them. Lin Rahai, is this true? Hearing Xiao Nani's allegations, Emperor Qi Ming's questioned Lin Rahai to explain his intention. Lin Rahai's heart pounded wildly when he saw the expression of the Emperor, Your Majesty. Am not the only one. All merchants in the market have increased their prices. Explain to me why Lu family selling their grain at the usual price. It's fine if you raise the grain price. Business is about profit. But you actually sent people to the Lu family's shop to buy as many as you could to monopolize the market, so you could control the price. Before Lin Rahai could finish his sentence, Xiao Nani interrupted him coldly. Lin Rahai's eyes were filled with shock when he heard Xiao Nani's words. No one should have knew about this. Lin Rahai, how dare you? Emperor Qi Ming looked at the person kneeling on the ground, his eyes filled with anger. And who is this? Meanwhile, Emperor Qi Ming also saw Lin Xingchen. Imperial brother, he is under my command, but he is also the only remaining descendant of the Lin family's direct bloodline. A direct descendant of the Lin family? What is your name? How are you related to Lin Tianyang? I am Lin Xingchen. Lin Tianyang is my father. You're Lin Tianyang's son? Raise your head. Upon Emperor Qi Ming's command, Lin Xingchen raised his head. Seeing his features, Emperor Qi Ming exclaimed, the resemblance is uncanny. If you are truly the son of Lin Tianyang, why have I never heard of you all these years? Your Majesty, about that, silence. I didn't ask you anything. Upon hearing the conversation between Emperor Qi Ming and Lin Xingchen, a look of urgency filled Lin Rahai's eyes on the side. He instinctively wanted to speak, but just as he opened his mouth, he was rebuked by Emperor Qi Ming. Your Majesty, when my father was gravely ill, Lord Lin took the opportunity to seize the Lin family's property. My legitimate lineage dwindled from then on. As for myself, if not for the few loyal servants by my side, the direct line of the Lin family would have been extinct long ago. You're lying. Upon hearing Lin Xingqian's words, Lin Ruohai couldn't hold back any longer. Pointing at Lin Xingqian, he looked towards Emperor Qi Ming, saying anxiously, "Your Majesty, these are merely his one-sided words. When my cousin was gravely ill years ago, I became the head of the Lin family because it was his dying wish. All these years, one have always been looking for Xingqian. You've indeed been looking for me. Your goal in looking for me is to eliminate me completely. These are all your own words. Do you have any evidence? Lin Xingqian, I ask you, do you have evidence for what you've said?" Upon hearing the two's words, Emperor Qi Ming fell into silence. After a brief moment, he looked at Lin Xingqian and spoke. In Emperor Qi Ming's eyes, there was a mixture of emotions as he spoke. "Your Majesty, one have no proof. Your Majesty, I have evidence." At this moment, a voice from outside the hall echoed. It was Jiang Peihuan. Upon hearing that voice, Emperor Qi Ming spoke directly. "Why is she everywhere? Wang Kuan, go and let her in."
Yes.
Wang Kuan hurriedly walked to the entrance of the hall, looking at Jiang Peihuan and Lin Mingxin standing there. "Thank you, Chief Wang." Wang Kuan smiled and said, "Miss, the Emperor is waiting for you." Jiang Peihuan glanced at Lin Mingxin and then brought her in together. "We, Jiang Peihuan and Lin Mingxin, greet your Majesty." Once inside, Jiang Peihuan immediately knelt in a gesture of respect. "Why have you come here?" "You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.